I gotta want to buy it.
It's like the scene in Ready Player One, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we could sell 85% of their screen and then like they could still live. And you're like, nah.
That's have you seen the TV they're giving away for free, but it comes like attached with a whole bar of extra screen that's just advertising?
No, what?
Yeah, yeah. 55
Wow.
inch display, free, 4K,
Yeah.
not a smart TV. They include
Uh,
like a Android dongle and then a whole like a 3 inch thick full width bar for advertising. And like
uh,
they say other shit too, but it's like it's for
yeah.
advertising.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. No.
That's wild.
No. Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. I just don't understand how we keep walking into like these dystopian sci-fi futures that we've like already explained are going to happen, and we're like all of them suck, and
Yeah.
then we continue to do them anyway. We're like, oh well, why don't we just try it though?
Yeah,
Is
right, right.
civilization made out of people? And you're like, yes, dude. Yeah, it is.
Dude, it's been a wild like era because
Yeah.
it's robots with human faces. Like this can't possibly go wrong. It's AI that learns on its own. Couldn't it's not like we've made 50 fucking movies about this and proven
Right.
that
Right.
it goes wrong and
Right.
mind you, in the minds of the people who are coming up with shit, the wildest shit, they couldn't think of a way where it goes right. Like there's no
Right.
alternate future that anyone's told where like, oh, we invented AI and then like it evolved and it grew conscience, but then we just like lived together in perfect harmony. No
Right.
one's written that story because they can't
No.
fathom how it would work.
Right, right, right. Oh, every time it's like, yeah, yeah, we're still the heroes, but we actually suck and we caused this. Like we're the plucky guys who have to fight against it. But hey, just so you know, it was our fault
Yeah.
because the first AI we made was a war AI, and so it killed us. You're like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it just it's the dumbest shit ever.
It always ends up like no matter what we do, as soon as humanity, any branch of humanity tries to offload the work, that's all it ends up being, right? It's just
Right,
like AI, whether it's going all the way back to slavery, whether it's that, whether it's oh, we're gonna make clones, but they're gonna be dumb and they're gonna do all the manual labor, or
right,
it's robots, or it's AI. As soon as we try to offload the work, it goes poorly
right,
because that's a bad fucking thing to do. It's
right, right,
if you
right.
want something, you got to work for it.
Which is also kind of crazy because, like, the theory of AI or robots, right? Autonomous robots would make a lot of sense in a society that's based on socialism, right? It has to be based on socialism because nobody's gonna have anything to do, right? Like,
Yeah,
like the stuff that we work, right? Like, it doesn't exist anymore. So if we do, like, okay, we've created worker robots so everybody can chill. So then everybody is more chill about everything. We're not fighting over oil and gas and resources and all this stuff. We don't have to do that anymore. Then, okay, yeah, it goes great. But the moment you propose that, right, you propose socialism, at least in America, right? The moment you propose socialism, no, hell no, I've got to be able to fight whoever I want to, whenever I want to, for whatever I want to, but also give me the robots who then I'm going to fight for everything. And I don't know why it goes wrong. Like, Jesus.
it's and even when you look at it and there's a situation where like oh we do get to chill for a hot second, you look at Wally, right? The people that left on the ship in Wally, they were chilling. They
Yeah,
had nothing to do. Everything was automated. Nobody had to do any work. Their muscle mass was so poor they could barely walk.
right.
And then it went wrong.
Right. Right. And then it's, yeah, we're screwed again.
And then
Like,
the ship's AI was like, nah, fuck y'all. I'm
right.
taking over. Like just
Right. Right.
on the off chance someone says, I'd like to deviate from our original plan, the AI is like, no, we don't do that here.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's, yeah, we're us, man.
That's true.
Just
That's
all
true.
over. And we can't escape ourselves.
It's true. Well, that's a hot way to come into this episode. So let's kick it off proper. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Panels on Pages. I am joined today by Brian J Lambert of Wingless Entertainment or Wingless Comics. Brian, how you doing? Well, I've got recording. I've got audio this time.
Okay, we're recording this time. We're actually doing it this
I
time.
have audio this time. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I had 3 hours of great video.
Right. Just
zero sound.
right.
And it's
The
funny
best
because
pantomime interview ever in the history of pantomime.
I thought I deleted it, and then like 2-3 weeks later, I sat down to like edit something on this computer, and I was like, "Fuck," because it was right there, and I was like, here's another reminder.
All right, man. Good times though, man. We had a great conversation. So, I feel like it's worth it. Whatever.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to be back, man. Glad to be back. We always talk, even just regular little online communications and stuff. It's always a good conversation. So, man, it's good to be back. I mean, you're the man these days, right? Man, you get reposted by Straw Hat Goofy and getting into these big comic debates and stuff.
You know what? I try to do is I try to keep people honest, and I also try to throw the curveballs into the mix, right? Sometimes people are just doing their thing, and I'm like, but what about this? And other times people will say some stuff, like the Straw Hat situation was, man, I don't even remember what the impetus for that was, but it was something to do with the MCU. And all I know is, as soon as he responded, I was like, well, I fucking win. that means I either said something wild enough or something just like so like well thought out that the man, like, this dude's on the red carpet, right? He's representing the culture at the red carpets. He's being invited. He's being flown out by Disney. That's the dude, like, so
yeah.
When he just chooses to respond to me, and I'm sure a million people are, tagging him or stitching him at this point, me, damn, I win. That's how I say it. Every time a name like hits me, like Will Smith's Twitter account or TikTok account. So he did this joke. I think it's a fucking great joke, honestly. I love like good cheesy puns. He said, "How do you find Will Smith in the Antarctic?" And he like walks away a little bit and turns around. He's like, "You follow the Fresh Prince." And I was like, "That's fucking great. That's a great joke." So I just put like 3 smiley faces on there. That's it. Simple. Like 2 months later, it said, "Will Smith liked your comment." I was like, well, that's my day.
Right.
I don't care if it's his media team. I don't care if it was him. That's my day. That's my day.
Right. That screenshot is there. Will Smith liked comment. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. When somebody has that big name and then they interact with you. I mean, I think you jumped into on the conversation on this indie publisher situation on Twitter. And I saw it and I was like, oh, it'd be great, like if a brand that's already trusted in the indie space were to just then add on. So I was like, I would rather have Comics Wellspring explore publishing options, because then they already do 73% of everything. Just tack on the other 27 and call it the full 100. Like And they liked my tweet. They responded. They're like, "We hadn't thought about it, but that's a good point.
Yeah,
we'll bring it up at the next meeting." And I was like, bet.
Right. Look, man, so the guys at Comic Wellspring also sponsor Indie Comics Dispatch, which I'm a part of. And those guys are really, really dope. They also have some really cool stuff going on with Global Comics. And I believe the rollout for like print on demand is still coming by like 3rd quarter or 4th quarter this year.
Global?
Yeah.
Nice.
So through Global, through Comics Wellspring, print on demand, that's huge for indies, right? Because the only other indie that does that right now is like Indie Planet. You can get print on demand from them, right? So Comic Wellspring being able to do it, they're such a trusted company. Again, I print a ton of stuff with them. Everybody I know basically prints with them. They'll inbox me directly. Like even my last, when we printed up the trade paperback for Nightfall, my margins were off. And they hit me up and they were like, "Hey, Brian, just checking to see if you," and I was like, "You guys know you're right. Like, I messed up. It's okay. I'm going to take this L." And again, like I said, they were really cool. And it's not like just like a business kind of relationship. It's like cordial. Like they actually just hit me up, "Hey, Brian, this is what we got going. This is, the update. This is the new thing." So they're just really great people over there, man. So I enjoy that. And if they would do publishing, oh man, I might restructure some things. I wouldn't deny that.
I mean, look, if we could have in the indie space a real resource like that could, I mean, like right now, like you said, they've already got the digital, they've got the physical fulfillment and all that stuff for campaigns. They do all the little knickknacks, the posters, the cards, the bookmarks. They do all that stuff. It's just the one little extra piece for them to like have for them to have the reach out and talk to Barnes and Noble, talk to comic shops, and just have that pipeline. So like that's the only thing they've got to like build is that actual pipeline to the stores, because they do all the other things already. They like it's actually even a little bit better, right? Because Marvel's not printing in house.
Yeah,
you know, Marvel doesn't have print presses.
Yeah.
Greco does, because that's what they do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like that's their whole thing. So like they already do the heavier lifting of the shit. So I would love to see. I mean, like, you know, Marvel just switched to Penguin, and the first, and this is, you know, two of the biggest names in comics and publishing, and the first like 6 months of comics by multiple reports, not just my local shops, poorly packaged, half the fucking boxes damaged. Like, what the like? How does what a major brand collab and no fucking quality control? Like, that's wild.
Yeah, right. I think some of that's the crossover. I mean, I don't know, shit, I ain't in the back room, but
sure,
I would imagine it's the crossover of not knowing that business, right? Having the money for it, Penguin has the money for it, right? But like you said, Marvel's not printing in house anymore, so they've got to change their whole pipeline and figure this stuff out. And obviously it wasn't a snap decision to bounce, but maybe a little bit quicker than any of us thought. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think it's interesting times, and I think that there's some interesting things. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, if something like Comic Wellspring had an arm like that was doing it, I would personally, it's just my personal feeling, I would be more apt to go there than I would to try to get into Diamond, right? Yeah. Because even though you do Diamond and they have the the outreach and the networking or whatever, you still got to pay for your printing. You still got to work out those deals, meet a bunch of new people in order to do that. And there are just so many little infrastructure things that would actually be kind of dope. Again, if it could do it, it would be really, really cool. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of potential out there. There's a lot of potential out there. I was hit this, what is it? I forgot the name of the damn thing. It was like the ICV2. They posted about it. I forgot they were calling themselves independent publishing or independent comic, like collaborative or something.
ICC something. I think I know.
Yeah. And I was like the notion of it, I'm like, oh, okay, so it's like a co-op, which I'm like, all right, I'm down with a co-op. Let's look into it. And then of all people, Tyler pointed out, like, this isn't the answer, because they're not making money off the publishing, they're making money off of you as a member. That's their business model. They're a subscription service. And I was like, see, as soon as you reframe it that way, and that's why I think, especially in the indie space, especially because it is growing so fast and it's getting some notoriety out there, like people are talking about indie comics growing. So I think there's going to be some opportunists that are going to come into the space that are just going to be like, oh, I'm going to try to like use my existing connections or whatever to create the solution that I think they need. And people are going to, just in search of, trying to break out of whatever plateau they're at, they're going to jump on it and they could get burned.
I think we've already started to see that again, being, quote unquote, part of the business. I think we started to see that in some smaller ways and some different little niches here. Again, something like that ICC stuff or whatever. And also I think that indie comic creators have this like love affair with the notion of image. I know because like I do, but I have a love affair with the notion of image comics, not the publishing side of the house and how the business was run. People think that like, oh, if you bring 5 guys who make comics together, they can form a company and then they can be the new Image. And that's like 100% not how Image worked.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, because I think most people forget that Malibu did all the publishing. An established publishing brand did all the hard work, essentially.
Exactly. And so I don't even know if people forget that I'd say 90% of the people don't even know it.
Yeah.
Like if we're being fair, right? Like I don't think 90% of the people know it even.
Like there's a reason that Youngblood premiered in a Malibu Sun issue.
Exactly. Right. But again, a bunch of people don't know that. So they think, in my opinion, people think it's like not necessarily like an easy hurdle, but like an easy goal. Like, oh, it's just this one thing that we have to do in order to do this other thing. And it's super simple, guys. And it's like, no, it's 100% not super simple. Also, you brought together, when we're talking about Malibu, right, and talking about Image, you brought together the hottest artists at the time. There's a reason that Image sustained as long as it did, right, in that incarnation.
Yep.
Because of who it had. Again, bro, I still have books. I have The Prophet. I have, I don't know how many Young Blood source books. You know what I mean? I have a
I love
Cyber
all that
Force.
source book shit.
You know what I
man,
mean?
like...
Right? So all those things are great, but there's a reason why they don't exist anymore. Like all those titles, right? Because they burnt themselves out, and they did cruise on celebrity for a long time. And again, if you're talking about Malibu, Malibu had its own comics that were actually pretty fucking dope.
They really were, man. They
that
really
folded before
were.
Image. You know what I mean? Like, so people kind of, again, there are a lot of little missing elements that people are. It's easy to kind of hurdle over them with nostalgic eyes, or eyes that didn't really and don't really know the industry in terms of being on a big platform like that.
It's true because you see kind of you see it now too. What's his face? Is it Tyler? Yeah, Tyler Kirkham. Him and like 3 or 4 other big name dudes started their own thing. I think they're calling it Artist Alliance. And then like 4 or 5 other dudes are doing a big thing. I don't know if they're in partnership with somebody, but I know it was like they're doing like an exclusive thing. It's just them, their characters, all that stuff, like a shared universe kind of thing. Yeah. And I mean, if you look at even Hickman, right? Hickman brought a bunch of people together, some of the top names, went to a platform, just picked a fucking platform, went to platform, and then it's a full subscriber model. And I'll be honest with you, I would have jumped on at the price was ridiculous. This shit was like $300 for a fucking hardcover, and I was like, God damn. But I'm like, I really like his fucking writing though. Like, I am not a big person who like, I don't like people's writing, people's art. Like, I've got my favorites, but like no one has a guaranteed dollar from me. You know what I mean? Like nobody. I've read the best writers do some bad shit, and I've seen the best artists do some whack shit. So like to me, it's always like the premise. It's like a good joke, right? Like, like premise, set up, punchline, like execute the whole thing. Like I don't, because I like X-Men has my dollar forever. I'm gonna read X-Men till I die. Some of it's gonna be bad, some of it's gonna be great, but I'm there for the whole roller coaster. I'm there for the whole ride. But like I'm not jumping for like Hickman. He did a great job on X-Men. He did a great job on Avengers, and from what little I read, he did a great job on Fantastic Four. And I was like, I like the big universe building. That's my shit. So like, I like that. So when he started this 3 worlds, 3 moons thing with like, oh, source book material, like we're planning out the universe, languages, magic system. I was like, this is my shit.
Yeah.
But I was like, but I do not have $10 a month for you, sir.
Right. Like, I mean, it sounds like it's not all that much, right? Because you're like, well, I got Netflix, right? So, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, but I got Netflix. Like that's
200,000 titles.
Yeah, right. Like I don't have to, it's a completely different thing.
It's very, very, very particular. Like I'm very like streamlined on Patreon. Like I'm super specific with what Patreons I follow and support, because it is something where like one for me is completely utilitarian, because it's this website called crushingcrisis.com. He does all this work on organizing the reading list and what's been collected and like what issues are in which trades and shit. I bought the Fatal Attraction soft cover and I flipped through it and I was like, what the fuck? I went to his website. The one issue was only collected in the hardcover version. I literally called my local shop and I was like, I'm gonna need you to order that same book just in hardcover for me. Like, I had to buy the fucking book twice because I didn't check ahead of time. But like, he does all this fucking work, or they are. I don't know how many people are on the staff or whatever, but like, they it's a like, so I you know, but that's like $2 a month. Like that's as a utility, like fuck because what did I do right before this podcast? I sat for 2 fucking hours organizing my fucking comics in the CLZ app because I just scanned all my X-Men shit recently. So like I need that shit. That is a utility. But for like creative shit, I need product. Like I need,
and it's so, and again, even $10 isn't bad per month if you're getting that, right? Like it's,
if you're getting a ton of product,
right. It supplements 2 books on your pull list, right? Monthly, if you're getting that. if you're not getting that, right, then what's the point?
Right.
And how long before, okay, you front load the first couple months, and then how 6 months into there, you're not getting material. 3 months after that, you've forgotten that you're paying for it now. And now you're 2 years into it, 24, $250 in, and you still only have that front loaded month. Like there are just so many things that can happen and do happen. And man, don't get me wrong. If I was Hickman, I'm taking that contract too. I get to do what I want to do, create my own thing, like 100%. I'm doing it, and I want people to get on it. So I'm not saying
you build your name and your legacy to the point that Marvel's like, hey, you want to do some wild shit with the Ultimate Universe? Just come do whatever you want.
Do. Right, exactly.
We don't really care. Just make us more money because people love your shit. So they know people because my problem was I'm a trade buyer, right? I collect trade paperbacks, and his trade was only available if you signed up for the fucking year or whatever. And I was like, that's a lot.
That kind of sucks, right? Yeah, it sucks. Right. Yeah.
That's a lot. Like there is a value break for me. Like at a certain price point, like I saw Amazing Spider-Man 25 was $6.99. And if I was buying monthly comics, I'd probably walk away from that. $7?
Yeah.
Nah, bro. Like that is a third of the way to the entire trade.
Yeah.
Why the fuck? Like that's so there. So like floppies and trade, like even trades. Like I'll be honest. Like I have the digitals for the antagonists, and I was looking at their campaign right now, and I was like, it's $200 just for the 2 trades.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a lot of fucking money. Like I just, and I'm trying in my head. I'm like, how do I justify this? And it's like, nah, like I know the page count. Like that's, even if it's just story.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fucking money. Like I paid $200 for an X-Men hardcover because it was out of print, almost 200. I had a fucking 15% off coupon. You know what I'm saying? Like I brought it down as far as I could because I was like, because everything on eBay, it was going for like 280, all this shit. But it was Eve of Destruction. It's the like one of the times they kill Magneto.
Yeah.
And I bought it. I drove fucking 45 minutes to a whole ass different town. But I bought it because I'm a collector and I needed that space. I needed
a collection. Yeah.
They never fucking reprinted it. They still haven't reprinted it, which thank God. Like I was really expecting, like, I'm gonna go do this whole thing, go get this fucking $200 book. Come back 3 days later, they're gonna be like, oh, they're doing a new print. And I'm like, I don't want to do that shit again. So thankfully they haven't done that. And I'm far enough from that I'm like, if they do it now, I'm fine. I have it. I read it. I had a great experience from it because a bunch of the pages, including one whole issue, were scans because they lost their data or something. Because I laughed my ass off. Because the first time I saw it, it was like one page. I was like, fucking seeing shit. So I like went back, checked the pages before. I'm like, clean copies, and then I go to this one. This is clearly a scanned fucking physical comic book. That's fucking crazy. So I was like, oh man, they must have lost the file for this one page. And then like the next entire issue was fully scanned. I was like, damn. And I laughed my ass off because that's literally from 2001, I think, because that was I think it was called X-Men Forever. And it was when they made Mystique in comics look like movie Mystique for like a hot second. But it was like a bunch of these like, let's talk about these various plot points that we just never dealt with. It's not a great fucking story, let me tell you. It's like it's Jean, Bobby, Iceman, and Juggernaut and fucking Mystique. They're like pulled together by some fucking time person and like sends them back to like various different points in their history. And I'm like, it's not a great fucking story, but that's what it's Prosh, the ship X Factor used to live on. Prosh puts them back. So but like I laughed because that era, the 2001 era, is when Marvel was like shutting down X-Men scan websites and Marvel scan websites left and right. They were fucking going hard. So I'm like, the fact that you had to use the same technology just to get this fucking put out, I was like, I feel a little vindicated because in that era, like I was a kid, I didn't have any fucking money. So like the little bit that I was able to get through ordering from Mile High Comics back in the day, my mom would be like, "Oh, you got $10, you know, order some shit." So I'd be like, "All right, how many quarter books can I get? What, like, which ones am I missing?" I got whole runs of X-Force and shit. Like, but at the same time, like, I wanted to read all of it, so I ended up fucking bootlegging a ton of comics. But then, like, you know, but then I bought most of them anyway.
Right. I may or may not have a full, you know, removable drive of scans. I may or may not.
The theory, the potential thing, but it's like I'm also paying for Marvel Unlimited. I'm also paying for DC Universe Infinite. DC, I appreciate. I don't want to say more. The interface is good. I can never get the fucking Marvel Unlimited to work on a browser. I don't fucking know why. Like, I've tried it on multiple computers, multiple different browsers. It never works. It only works in the app. But like DCU Infinite, I can fucking do it on any browser on any computer.
Yeah,
but they keep adding shit. Like, I see them do it because I started reading, which is funny because I definitely for sure have the scans of these, but I was like, fuck it, they're in the app. I'm just gonna read them in the app. The Stormwatch run from like the
original, okay,
and they had it like up to issue 7, and I kept going back to it, and then it was like, oh, now they're till issue 11. Now it's till like issue 50.
Oh, that's what's up.
So like they're pushing through. Like they have a really good collection of stuff, and they keep adding things. Now they added, it's kind of dumb, they added like a higher tier, and like trade volumes are only available to the higher tier people. I was like, no, I'm good. I'll read them one by one. It's fine.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's so difficult. Whatever.
But it's like, I feel like when you are in a position where you can't buy, especially like I cannot buy monthly. Like, I don't have the fucking space for it. So like I read monthly.
Yeah.
The way I need to read them, and then I buy my trades.
Right.
And I buy my trades, and I have the little bit extra bonus features and stuff in it. And then online, especially with Marvel like Unlimited, like, you know, we were saying $10 a month versus $7 a month, or $7 a month, or whatever Marvel Unlimited is. Marvel Unlimited has hundreds of thousands of comics.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like,
the value is completely different.
Yeah, you could read all of the X-Men comics pretty much. Like I think I found like 2 or 3 series that are missing, and they were just like minis, you know, like little stuff. But like, so much stuff is in there. Why the hell wouldn't you? Like, I don't know. That's why when I saw Global, they do them monthly, or they do it like an annual thing or whatever. I was like, oh, that's cool, because now they're launching an app as well.
Yeah.
I really like, that is where I was like, oh shit, because I'm like, that's value.
Yeah, Global's, I think personally, I think Global's about to do some really big kind of things. Their interface again is good. They've got a bunch of different partnerships, and they got Image and a couple Boom, and you know, some really nice stuff on there, man. So and again, those guys are super nice, man. Like, so I will say Global reached out to me, man, maybe like 2 years ago, right? I'm just this, you know, Justice 1 and 2 guy, and they reached out. They shot me an email, personal email, and I didn't brush it off. I was just really busy, right? And like, not like, oh, too busy for that. It's just my priorities were all over the place trying to make it work or whatever. And then they reached out a second time. Hey, man, we really like your stuff. You should get it on Global Comics. You should, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it took me a little while, but I finally did. And even they noticed, right, when I got it on. Oh, hey, we saw that you finally dropped the books on there. We're happy to have you. You know, they're, again, man, really good guys are really pushing forward, like really about the culture and about like the business without being only about the business, which is a huge part of what we do. And I think it's a huge part that gets lost. Like, you'll have people that are like, oh, I'm all about the comics, and that's all they think about, whether or not their comics are good or bad, right? But that's all they think about. Right. And that's just as much a disservice as someone who's only about the business part of it. Like, you've got to have a mix of both in order to do it well. Excuse me. And a lot of people just don't do that. We've talked about Comic Wellspring, but, you know, I think Wellspring does that really well. I think Global Comics does that really well, of kind of supporting both aspects of the creation and the business rollout.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I've seen definitely some examples of people who are like all business and people who are all comic. You know, and like you said, the product isn't necessarily matching that ambition, right? There are people who are, I still will never forget this, and even more so because he's seems to have disappeared, which like vindicates my original assessment. this dude, I literally don't even remember. I think the book was Marcus something. It was about this dude who was supposed to be like the super powerful guy, and then he was doing this Kickstarter, and the price point, the goal was like 20 grand for a single issue, and the big draw was a bunch of variant covers. Maybe it wasn't even variant cover, maybe it was just prints of like his dude like beating up Goku and the X-Men and who, all these big name dudes, right? That was his whole thing. And he was like, "Oh, we're about to be in," like, because I was like, "Hey man, like, just like as a person who buys a lot of shit on fucking Kickstarter, like 20 grand is like pretty fucking high.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you're gonna hit that. Like, I don't like, how many pages is the book? Like, I'm kind of trying to get some information out of him.
Yeah.
And he basically like, "Oh no, I'm about to be in Diamond. Like, this is just for promotion, basically, blah blah blah." And I'm like, but if you're gonna be in Diamond, like, why do you even need to do this? Like, if you already got the pipeline set up, right? And it kind of went back and forth on some shit like that, and I moved on, right? Whatever. And then it came up again in conversation like 2 years later, and I was like, you know what? And I think I remembered him, and I was like, let me just go fucking check this out. Nowhere. Nothing.
Blank, right? Gone.
There's no issue. I mean, obviously that campaign never hit that fucking goal.
Yeah.
It's really like, it's really interesting to see how people approach their campaigns.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting to see how, like, I talked to somebody who worked for DC, like somebody who, like, you would know him if I said his name, and I'm not going to say his name, but he has stuff from a while back. Like, he had a couple trades already, and he was finishing up a mini series, and he's like, "Oh, last issue, issue 3 of this series." I was like, "Hey, is there going to be a trade? Because collect trades."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I'd like to do a hardcover one day, but who knows?" And I was like, "All right, well, how about you throw on the physical add-ons to the digital tiers? I get this digitally, and I'll get the other, the rest of your stuff." His response was, "My add-ons are great. Who are you to tell me how to run my campaign?" And I was like, a really weird way to respond to someone who's asking you to give them a way to give you the most money they want to give you.
Yeah.
It's a really weird fucking response.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it just happened that, like, when he hit his initial response, like, "Oh, who are you to tell me how to run my campaign?" I screenshotted it because it was in my notifications. So I pulled down my notification shit. I was just like flabbergasted. I was at work. I was just like, and I just screenshotted it right there. And after I said, "I'm like, that's a weird way to respond to someone who's asking you to give them a way to give you more money," he deleted all his tweets.
Of course.
And I was like, I'm keeping that fucking screenshot.
Right. For forever. Just in case. And like, "Hey man,
I've been at time."
Right.
I was like, bro, like, it's such a, like, for people. And then, like, a similar situation, the Isnana campaign was going, and I was like, I think it was a one shot. And I was like, "Hey, I don't do singles. Like, can you?" But like, I can't add the trades to the digital tier. He's like, "Bet." Less than 5 minutes later, he's like, "Here you go. I made a whole tier for you.
Right.
Add whatever you want to it." I got the 2 trades. I think I got like a trading cards or something. Like,
it's super simple.
Spent $160 with him.
I run into that. I had one guy. The first time I did add-ons, and this is when they had first added add-ons, right? I made the mistake of, in addition to the add-ons themselves, I added shipping because I didn't know that it would double add shipping, right? So like, you buy your tier and that comes $5 shipping. Then the add-on was a $5 comic book or whatever plus $5 shipping. It's kind of a ripoff, right? And so I didn't realize that's how it calculated. I was thinking like, oh, it's gonna know all of it, whatever they got is just this $5 shipping on the regular thing. Not the case, right? So a guy had ended up getting like 5 issues plus like whatever he had gotten, and then he like emailed me real pissed off. "Why would you charge right?" And like, I was kind of mad because of how the email came to me, and I was like, "Oh, that wasn't like, oh, I didn't know it calculated like that. Like, chill out, you know what I mean? Hey, just send the money for the, like, send the $5 for each issue.
Yeah.
Delete your add-ons. I'm gonna put a note in your campaign. I'll get them to you. No worries. Don't worry
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it. And I'm going to delete the add-ons in general. Well, you should have done this in the first place and blah, blah, blah. And at that point, I don't care about your money. You get one time to talk to me crazy. Then after, I'm going to be like, you can go fuck yourself. And it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I've run into that like kind of creator ego duality, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, you gotta walk that back, right? Someone is trying to give you money. Okay, cool. You can respect that. And if you come from a place of respect, they come from a place of respect. Even if y'all don't agree, it could all be cool. Hey, let me see what I can do for you, at the very least. But all of that, like one of those, I just had a kerfuffle with Eric Larson with one of those, like, do you know who I am kind of things.
Eric Larson.
Yeah, man. I hear it's like you haven't cut your teeth in the business till you've argued with Eric Larson. Sometimes, you know what I mean, or something. Yeah, he came. He was on a post, and someone had suggested, just a random person, right? So the dude's not even in the industry like that, like not even in indies. He's just a fan who was in one of these Facebook groups that was like, oh man, what do you think about, like, do you think it's time that the Spider-Man, moniker gets like retired as far as Miles goes? Shouldn't he get a new name, or blah blah blah? So the guy's like, oh, I think he should be Anansi, or give him Anansi was a name. He should be Anansi, and then Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So obviously you got people going back and forth about it, whether or not they like it or don't like it or whatever. And a lot of people, myself included, were like, he don't really match Anansi's character. Like, we get where you're going. Like, you want it to be more culturally sound or whatever, blah blah blah. But whatever. But Mr. Larson, and it was probably just he spoke incorrectly or typed too quickly, whatever, right? But basically, he was saying that Anansi wasn't a viable name. And like, no, see, that's the face, right? That's the face it should be, right? Because it's weird. And then he goes into
that's a weird statement against
right.
a stank face response.
Right. And he goes into how it's not known, so nobody knows how to say it, so it's not a good name. And we're like, but neither is Tchaikovsky, right? Like, and neither is Thor until they're known. Like, no one's known. It's a hard name to say, but we can say Hercules. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, you know what I mean? So
I'm gonna go for any kind of pronunciation problems that people have. I'm gonna go with Hassan Minhaj's response to that. If you can say Timothy Chalamet, you shouldn't have a problem to say any other fucking name. That dude's got 17 O's in his name. I don't know how to if I had read that before I heard Timothy Chalamet, when I read his name, I was like, who the
definitely would not have pronounced it like that.
Chala, what the fuck is like
like
who the fuck is this person, right?
But
it's like,
exactly,
when you hear it, and it's like, first of all, people who are of our age, I think we're about the same age. We've been known Anansi. Anansi was on Gargoyles.
I've
been known Anansi.
So he's in the streets. He's been there for a while.
Yeah, he's been around. So like people have grown up with it as a name in culture, in their cartoons and whatever, because it's just present. So like, to say that it's not known, I mean,
it's hard to pronounce. Oh, is it a name? It was okay. So it got so bad at one point, he went and he did the copy and paste from the Wikipedia, like literally. And I'm not making that up. I'm not saying that he copied and pasted the Wikipedia. No, he actually went to the Wikipedia, copied and pasted the phonetic description of the name and some of the etymology that's on the Wikipedia to try and invalidate it. It was a weird flex, man. It was strange. And he ended up, and I got under his skin a little bit, but he ended up confusing me with the original poster. And we're both black. And so I was like, oh, that's weird that you confused one black person for the other. We're not the same person, sir. So
that's great.
He ended up blocking me, obviously, right?
Of course.
But again, it's one of those ego things sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, where you say something and then it's supposed to be like, oh man, my bad, right? Like, it ends the conversation right there. Oh, my bad. You double down.
Yeah.
Whereas he could have said, right, which I still think is wrong, but he could have said, from a publisher's perspective, if it came across my desk and all I knew was Anansi, I wouldn't greenlight the comic book because the name doesn't pop to me, right? Being ignorant of whatever the mythology, and he even said that, hey, I don't know anything about it. So I don't know that I would greenlight a project with just that name on there, right? Like, I would need more meat in order for me to do it. But again, as someone he's a creator, he's a writer, he's been doing this for a while, to not understand that you need to put that nuance into your Facebook comments, and not just wholesale say some culture is invalid or some cultural name is invalid is a trash take. That's like, it's weird because also in these nerd groups, right? Like, I don't know how many anime and manga reference, Amaterasu, right? I didn't know Amaterasu before I started watching Fire Force. But what did I go do? I was like, man, I've heard that name before. Let me go see if I can look it up. Oh, that's the name of a Japanese god, and it's really super important to the culture. So that's like, what kind of an asshole would I be if I was like, it's not viable because I don't know what it means. I don't know how to pronounce it. That's a stupid take to have about anything in 2023, bro. If it's 1980, okay, it's fine, right? Because all of us had those goddamn white encyclopedias that didn't have all the information, but we couldn't get it all at the time.
Right.
We have the internet now. We have all the information. So that's a stupid take. You can have the computer say it for you if you don't know how to pronounce something.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a very unfortunate and, in my opinion, ignorant take based on a few things that are historically horrible to my people. Even unknowingly, I still feel that way. You know what I mean? But again, it boils down to that ego part of like, who are you to tell me anything? I know all the things. And you're like, but do you though?
He's him specifically. He's hitting the kind of Frank Miller era of his life. Yeah. Like his art has gotten tremendously lazy, or he's just gotten slow. One or the other. Because I don't know if you ever read Ant. It was created by a dude like 2002 or 3 or something like that. And it like bounced around publishers for a while. It was like a 3-issue mini here, a 4-issue here kind of thing. And then eventually it got to like issue like 11 or something or 10, but it was like to be continued and then fucking disappeared.
Never, right?
And then at some point, Larson bought the rights and just put out the last issue, right? And it's funny because it's terrible, like horrible art. Like this dude, it's like he sketched it, like he did some like loose sketches and then just sent that shit into color. Like it's not good. And I was just like, what the fuck? Because I had kind of been following just visually, like skimming through Savage Dragon issues, and I was like, he seems to be putting in the same amount of effort in Savage Dragon. But it's like that happened, the Ant issue came out, and then Savage Dragon went on hiatus for like a year. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I was like, this motherfucker was putting out like 2 issues a month at one point. Like, he was cranking. And then I saw, it came back. And now it's like, I think Savage Dragon is like every few months now. But he's also made Savage Dragon incredibly sexual. And I don't get to decide if this is racist, but it feels racist. So Dragon's wife, there's a junior dragon, not the original dragon, the current dragon. His wife is Asian, and she is a genuine nymphomaniac. That seems to be a running plot, and she just wants, like, they got like 7 fucking kids or some shit. Like, they always fucking. Yeah. And that's part of the story. This isn't like, they go behind a door. No. It's, you're seeing, this has become a mature book. Yeah. Like, children should stay the fuck away from Savage Dragon. Like, this is not appropriate for children. Like, and as soon as I saw it, the first time I saw it in that, I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. I was like, maybe he just wanted to like do something for an issue or whatever. But then it's like in the next issue, she's trying to fuck him in a fucking mall or some shit. Like, what the fuck is happening right now? And every time I'm like, he's like weirdly stereotypically Asian visually. Like, she's real small. I'm like, I don't get to decide if this is racist, but I'm like, it's really feeling racist.
I won't prescribe anything to Eric Larson because obviously I don't know, right? Sure. But you know what I mean? Like, did I feel the same way? It's like, was that like, it's a little diet racism? It's like all the racism without the calories, you know what I mean? Like, but I also think that he's seen that what we see a lot in, well, at least Kickstarter comics, if nothing else, right? You put some titties in your book, man, and you do hit that 10K, right? You do hit that 20K. There are a lot of creators that I know right now that are like, we worked so hard on this book and we're so happy that our story is getting out and blah, 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 right? They say all these things and it's like, no, bro, it's because you put titties on the cover. Because you have a NSFW cover And that's why it's sold, because no one knows what your story is at all. No one knows what this is about. No one cares. No one talks about it beyond having bought the titty book, right? Like no one is having conversations about the impact of your sexy cyber ninja, right? Like it's just you did a sexy cyber ninja, and so you sold that much. You know what I mean? And so I think that Larson, among others, right, just because we're talking about him, have seen how lucrative, if not shallow, that can be.
Right.
You know, look, man, if I do Justice and some buttless chaps in the next issue, and you know what I mean, and get it popping, I could probably cross over 20K pretty easily, right? But again, like, how does that compromise what I'm doing?
It's true. It's true. And it's funny because so I backed the art book from Merc Publishing. And I'm interested to see what it looks like because I had never seen this company until I saw them at a show. And I was like, oh, this is interesting stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, we're about to do a Kickstarter. And I was like, oh, it's an art book. I fucking love art books. That's my shit. So let's see what's going on. And I backed it, you know, it funded or whatever. And then it like, I was like, you know what? I should read their book because I'm like, they share a lot of their fucking posts are just like TNA, like sexy women and stuff. And I'm like, let me just see what's going on. Let me just fucking get one of these books. And as soon as I like went to, I bought the 2 issues. I still haven't read them, but I bought two issues of how's it called? Their main Ms. Meow. Yeah. Okay. I mean, like they had like 3 other titles, but that's like their that's the flagship, one, right? That's their flagship title. So I was like, let me just check out this flagship title. And like they had a bunch of variants by Jamie Tyndall, who I've had like a very like interesting like flowing opinion about him for years. Because like his art is like if you took Michael Turner and just like stretched everyone out just a little bit longer. Like Michael Turner already drew some like tall women.
Yeah.
And Jamie Tyndall was like, hold my beer. Like these women got legs for years. Like
yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know. And it's like I actually ended up selling his 2 art books that I had because I was kind of like, I'm kind of over this dude. Like the art books don't have they're just like, here is this piece I did. Here is, you know, and it just there's nothing. There's no content. There's just a bunch of sexy women. Like, and I was like, I'm like, this is not really my thing anymore. Like I bought that shit years ago.
Yeah.
I'm over that shit now. Like I got other shit I'm interested in. So I happened to catch that Merc Publishing was started by motherfucking Jamie Tyndall. And I was like, oh, I'm like that now translates this whole brand is based on the stuff he does. So that's why I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to be interested to see how this art book, because like I said, they have other titles. One of their titles is like a cyberpunk dude, like murderer guy. Like I haven't read it yet, but like they've got different stuff. So it's not just because like my first kind of like eyebrow raise with Jamie Tyndall was when he did the fuck was it called? White Widow. And I was like,
I saw that. I think White Widow is back on Kickstarter right now. And for like the final issue or something.
Of course it is. And first time I saw it, I was like, so it's Black Widow with Spider-Man's white costume. Like,
right.
But this is something I did in 7th grade. That the first comic book I came up with in 7th grade was a comic book where it was legit me. Because somebody was like, oh, what's this? Because it was a Spider-Man ripoff. But it was like, I had just seen the Black Costume Saga. And I was like, but what if the colors were inverse? Which, by the way, I take like, I believe in like the universal consciousness. So like, I take credit for Anti-Venom because of that. And I also take credit for Ultimate Venom because I was like, it's not an alien in my story. It's a suit that was created through science. So I'm a firm believer that I'm gonna come up with some shit as long as somebody does it. I don't have to do it as long as it gets done. I don't give a shit.
Right.
So that's why I feel like Global Comics, like when I first started doing the magazine, and I'm sure you know, but for anyone listening that doesn't know, I do a magazine called the Catalyst.digital. It's just called Catalyst, but that's the website. Completely free, promoting indie creators. Mix of heavy metal and wizard magazine, kind of the best of both worlds. And that original idea was to come up with a platform where all indie shit could go, like indie comics, indie music. Like I when I come up with ideas, I start with the biggest, most massive version of it, and then I try to pare it down to something that's achievable now.
Yeah.
And that took me a while, but I finally came up with a magazine. But when I saw Global Comics, and I was like, oh, they got all the indie people on here. Oh, they're about to drop an app. Oh, you could just pay directly to the creator, and they just take their like operating cut. I was like, this is everything I was gonna do with that platform. So I'm like, cool. This is
right.
So
you're
far,
welcome, guys.
Yeah, so far this is going where it needs to go. I don't need to take the credit as long as the shit is there. That's why, like the notion of Comics Wellspring taking over the publishing, I'm like, I'd love that. Like, let's say they fucking do it. I'm not gonna fucking be like, remember that time when I said that shit on Twitter? Like, yeah. I don't give a fuck. Like, yeah. I want the structure to be out there. So yeah, when I saw White, to go back to my original point, when I saw White Widow, I was like, I came up with that shit in fucking 7th grade. So like, how the fuck is this dude making thousands of dollars on a campaign off some shit I came up with in 7th grade? Right. Like, you didn't even try hard. Like, right. You just combined you just Rob Liefeld did this shit. You took two different ideas and slapped it together. By the way, I would like to say this on podcast and to you specifically, because I feel like you'll take some enjoyment out of this. And it's on Twitter, so it's as to his face as I think it'll ever get. But to Rob Liefeld's face, to his internet face, I basically said, "What the fuck are you doing with your life, man? You lost." I said, because listen, bro, somebody he responded to me, and I've been talking shit about this man for 20 fucking years. So like, that was a bad decision for him. So like, he should have heard about me by now. But somebody was like, oh, like, they said something about him creating or whatever, the X-Force characters, right? Cable, Domino, and Deadpool. And I was like, he ain't got nothing to do with these characters. And he's like, I'll have you know, I like legit hits me with, I'll have you know, I get paid royalties, blah, blah, blah. And I get paid and I was like, we get it, Rob. You threw the winning touchdown in high school. You're 55 years old. What are you doing?
I saw Rob last San Diego Comic-Con, man. And like, the 13-year-old in me was like, go talk to Rob Liefeld, bro. Like, you loved his stuff when you were growing up. Like, you did. Like, regardless of how it looks, and looking back on the art now, you loved it when you were a kid. And the adult me was like, don't go over there, because it's just going to lead to disappointment and anger. And I saw him interact with somebody else, and I was like, oh, thank God I'm an adult. Because if he talked to me like that, like, I have to remind him he's a comic book geek. I don't give a shit how old you are. Or if you did invent Deadpool, you drew Deadpool the first time, bro. Like, we know. But the character, the way it is now, is not you. It has nothing to do with what you wanted it to be, right? Like,
oh my God, thank you so much. I'm the one usually having to say that.
Right. Like, so I read X-Force when it was, we were that age, right? We grew up with #1. We grew up with X-Force. So I get it. Yeah, no, hey, Rob, you did draw him. I remember X-Force 13, where you find out Domino is actually Vanessa, and then they go to get Tolliver. You know what I mean? And there's a quick fight with Deadpool and Cable. Like, I read that comic 100 times, right? Because it was one of the few that I had back then that I had bought myself. And Deadpool looked so cool. He had 2 swords, one that was regular, one that had energy around it. Like, it's just everything about it, right? Like, also in that comic, Cable says it's not mano y mano, it's mano y cabeza. As a kid, I didn't know that was cabeza. I didn't know what that meant. I was like, see, Biza? What, you know what I mean? It was like a moment in my life, right? So yes, I remember those characters, but the characters in their incarnation and in their most recognizable incarnation has zero to do with Rob. Like, Deadpool, the way Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is not the Deadpool that Rob wrote, right? And the Deadpool that Ryan Reynolds did, exactly. That's the iconic one. And so, Rob, you can say it has nothing to do with Deathstroke. It's not a lampoon on him. It's not a this. It's not a that. Well, when you originally wrote it, maybe it wasn't. It is now. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of the character's history.
Anybody that says that it was a little bit. There was a little bit of pop culture reference.
I agree.
It wasn't what it is now. It was always going to evolve and grow, but he's not the one that made it cool. Just like, look, I love Joe Mad. Love Joe Mad's art. Joe Mad drew that first miniseries of Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't attribute shit of Deadpool to Joe Mad.
No.
He didn't make that shit hot.
Right.
And in fact, I think a lot of people have a lot of revisionist history about these things that they like now, that are hot now. That mini wasn't that hot.
No.
At the time,
it was not. No,
it was not.
wasn't.
It was not. Motherfuckers were not fighting over that mini. No one gave a shit. It came out. Everybody moved on. I didn't know that mini existed for years. Now, I started reading in 90, 95, 96.
Yeah.
And I caught back up. So like I said, when I was ordering from Mile High Comics, I saw all the X-Force stuff was quarter bin. So I was like, I'm gonna get the full run. So I had, I want to say 1 to like 17. Great.
Yeah.
And I read the shit out of those books, man. I read the shit out of those books. I learned so many words because of that fucking series.
Right.
The fucking the pack. I didn't know that personal assault carrier. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I learned so many cool terms. Like comic books taught me a bunch of fucking language for sure. But like there was no mention of it. There was no like, oh hey, this happened in Circle Chase. Like, it was just like, this is a thing. Like, we're just right. You went through so like,
even as cool as Cable was, right? And Cable is cool, undoubtedly, right? He's been in a bunch of stuff. Executioner song, right? And you find out about Strife, and then they got the same face, and then you get the Scott and Jean stuff, right? Like that's.
But Fabian wrote that.
Exactly. That I was gonna say that's the post Rob era. Like that's when he got to be like, oh shit, like this character is dope and he does all these crazy things, and you know what I mean, and blah blah. So I wouldn't want to look back in 20 years from now, somebody else is taking over Justice, and somebody's like, Brian didn't have anything to do with Justice. Like I 100% do. 100% do, right? So I kind of get where he's coming from, but at the same time, sometimes I think that, especially comic book, look, at the end of the day, and this is one of the things that I don't like about popular society, right?
Sure.
Everybody's got like a chip on their shoulder and they're like some form of a badass. And I've had to do this myself and remind people like, bro, you're a comic book nerd, right? Like, and I am too, right? So I am not in the streets. Like I'm not a thug. I'm not hard. I'm not a mobster. I'm not a gangster. I like comic books, right? I might be able to handle my own business. Yeah, I played football. Yeah, I was rough and tumble, box, whatever, right? Like whatever your background is. Yeah, maybe you have some stuff. But at the end of the day, your strongest point, right, is that you're a comic book nerd.
Right.
So stop trying to come at everybody hot, right? Like somebody says something a little messed up. Okay, cool. Come back at them. But stop responding like, again, Rob, you're not finna whoop everybody's ass if they say that Deadpool is Deathstroke. Let it go, right? Like fight the real battles, bro. Fight the ones that like matter.
Why, when it comes up like that, like why didn't you fight for Youngblood as hard as you fight? Like let's be serious. Let's keep it a buck. Everything Rob Liefeld has created has been a bootleg for the most part.
Yeah.
Some sort of amalgamation of various other characters or just new takes on other characters that already existed.
Yeah.
And everybody's favorite version of all those characters he created were written by other people.
Agreed. 100%.
Youngblood didn't become interesting until Jeff Loeb wrote it.
Right.
Like, I'm talking about actually interesting.
Yeah,
it was cool. It was cool,
right?
It was cool.
Look,
they killed
Shaft
fucking villains and shit.
It had an EMP, basically like a mag pulse bow.
Yeah.
No one had seen that before. Yeah. That's pretty cool fucking technology,
right?
Shit
look cool.
It's great. But yeah, I still don't know Die Hard's story, and Die Hard's to me one of the coolest looking characters that he drew. And then I'm like, but what does he do? You know what I mean? Like, who is he? What's the thing? And again, it's not till later on, then you get some cool stuff, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah,
And to be like, even now, even to this day, like a historic example of indie, right? To be that guy and to not own the first thing you created as an indie,
right?
Like, how the fuck did that happen?
Right.
Like we saw Jim Lee doesn't own Wildcats no more because Jim Lee sold his whole company wholesale to DC.
Right.
And now guess what? He's at the top of that whole chain again.
Exactly.
So he's back at the top of that whole chain again, which is why I think Disney will be buying DC in about 5 years. Because let's be honest, last time Jim Lee was in charge of a company, it got sold to the bigger guy. But like it just, how do you not, like, Todd still owns his shit. Like, I just I just got Stoned, the hardcover. So Will Say still owns his shit.
Yep.
Will Say still owns Wetworks for show.
Yeah.
Nobody's putting Wetworks
Look,
out.
even Larson still owns Savage Dragon, bro. Like all of them do.
They
But
all own their own
you
shit.
sold low, too fast, whatever your deal was. So you bring up an interesting point though with the DC thing. Do I think that it's possible that Disney will buy them? Yes, but I think one or two things has to happen, which I think is part of the debate right now. I think one of the reasons that manga versus comics is such a hotly contested debate, and trades versus manga is such a hotly contested debate, because if you put them all in one, then that is going to help your case against antitrust. They can't say, oh, hey, you can't do that because you're going to have a monopoly on comics if you go, but manga's the same, and manga's outselling us 2-1 right now. You know what I mean? Manga has the market share on it. Trade paperbacks have the market share, which have nothing to do with our regular floppies. I think that it sets up a good case for that, because otherwise your layman only knows the big two. Your layman only knows Marvel and DC. They don't know Boom and Image and Aftershock and blah, 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 right?
I would wager the layman doesn't even know the difference between Marvel and DC.
I think they do now, only because of the movies, right? Like,
but I've seen a lot of laymen say, oh, is that a Marvel? When they're talking about Justice League.
It's so painful sometimes. Like, bro, did you
look at the
logo? Like, it's not hard.
I forget what we were watching. My wife has seen all of the MCU, and I think at this point everything DC as well. And to this day, and she's more educated than I am, and to this day will be like, when's Superman gonna show up? I'm like, this is the Marvel movie. What are you doing?
This is the other one. Why are you doing? Why would you do that?
Like, are you doing that on purpose? And she's like, what? Right. I'm like,
I failed you.
Like, yeah. I thought we were on the same page here. Like, you might have a better chance of saying that when we're watching Fast and the Furious. Like,
right. Have you seen the latest one? Because if you haven't seen the latest one, you don't know how right you are.
Not yet. Although I like a dumbass, I read a fucking spoiler. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I went actually yesterday, man. That was my birthday indulgence, bro.
Nice. We just went to see Guardians on Wednesday.
Okay, yeah. I saw Guardians on Monday. Guardians was great. Guardians was so, and so top 10. I did not like number 2. It was a movie, but I didn't like it. It was just
I liked it. I did not like it as much as I thought I would. I think the things that I liked about it, I think, outweigh the things I didn't like, but there are definitely more things I didn't like in that one. So in this one, honestly, there was one thing I didn't like, and that was Warlock. That? I didn't like the way that Warlock was portrayed. And it revealed to me, it like coalesced for me rather, this trend that James Gunn has of creating an infantilized version of a character. You had Drax in the first one, real dumb and slow. You had Mantis in the second one, and now Warlock in the third one. Warlock is one of the most powerful beings to ever exist, and this motherfucker doesn't know show him what we mean business means.
Yeah,
he doesn't understand nuance.
Yeah,
it's a bit much.
So okay, so wait, well,
but again, that's the only thing I didn't like about it.
You summed up 1 and 2 for me. I hated Mantis and Drax in number 2. I also hated them in the Christmas special. Right, they were just they were overdone to me, and that drove me crazy. Also, at the end of number 2, outside of Yondu's death, I hate sequels at this point a lot of times, because you get movie number 1, it sets up everything. Movie number 2 is purely filler. Whatever, by the beginning of the third movie, everything that's happened in the second movie 9 times out of 10 doesn't matter anymore. And Guardians is the same way, outside of like Yondu's death. But then you had the Infinity War stuff and on and on and on. So it changed some stuff. So that kind of massaged it for me. Then going into number 3, I just thought it was very grounded, and I don't want to say they got back to some things, but they showcased, I think, the people that they should have, and then the ways they should have. Warlock, I was always kind of worried about, because I don't find Warlock to be a very charismatic character, or a character who I give a shit about too much. So when they were like, he's going to be in the movie, which I knew was going to come, I was like, oh man, is he going to be boring? Like, is he going to be wooden? And he wasn't. But I wish he wouldn't have done as much talking, though. I wish that he was more. Him wouldn't. If he had just almost all the actions that he had, except for the dialogue, I think I would have loved the character.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because you see him make these changes and figure stuff out, and he was popped from the cocoon too early. So you're like, oh, he's kind of figuring it out.
Yeah,
And I think if they had lessened his dialogue, he would have been better.
100%. I agree. I think if they had made him more to be like he is a construct, like
yeah,
but they made him to be a child.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
I think
he
he should have been more stoic and listening,
like a computer. Like
he's more learning. Closer to vision. Closer.
Yeah,
you know
just
what I mean?
like he came out. He came out early. He doesn't have all the details.
Yeah,
he doesn't, restraint things like that. He doesn't understand it. When she said that's not what I meant, he should have just been like,
I'll
keep
little
that in mind going forward.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and like
something.
Okay, and then whatever. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, dude, I love the film. I just thought it was great. You know what I didn't like? Well, okay, I don't want to say I didn't like, but I wasn't partial to. I don't think the musical cues were all that good this time. He had like some good music in there, but like the first one's musical cues were like right on point, right? Yeah. Come and Get Your Love, like it's an irreverent song, but it made so much sense like in the moment and blah blah blah. I think that he had good music. He picks good music,
sure,
but I don't think that the cueing itself was as significant in this movie, as it was in like let's say number one.
Yeah, in this it definitely felt more. It felt more like an active soundtrack.
Yeah,
especially since you start with Rocket, like everyone's listening.
Yeah,
Rocket, you start and end with Rocket listening to music.
Yeah,
and like the fact that it wasn't just his experience, like we weren't, which is funny because he said that he knew this was the story the whole time. I watched the interview with him, James Gunn. He said he knew this was going to be the whole arc the whole time. So like the fact that Rocket said that, like the things that he said along the way all were leading to this always.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool, but like the protagonist as you portrayed it in the first two was Peter.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was his supporting cast.
Yeah.
And in this one, Peter's, I don't want to say damn near not there, but like 50% of he's a plot device.
He's not the emotional weight. I still think that he is the protagonist in the classic sense of he is the one that makes plot points happen.
Sure. Okay. I'll give you that.
But Rocket's the main character.
You're right.
Right. You know what I mean? So
right.
I think the balance was there for the most part. And I think that it carried itself for the most part. I think that it's gonna sound kind of maybe dumb. I think the end was a little protracted. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if you had given me maybe 5 more minutes of like kind of the whys and what fors, I wouldn't have minded. But again, I'm not in Hollywood. I guess they know better than I do.
What's funny is it very much felt like the movie's done, but now we have to explain why these people aren't going to be in this movie anymore. Movies anymore.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I actually just finished, like 2 days ago, finished Titans. Not a good show. If you haven't watched it, don't watch it.
It lost me like season 3. I like season 1 and 2. I like seeing the characters on screen, and 3 lost me.
It lost me in season 3 as well, because when Bruce Wayne dropped that crowbar on the floor,
bro,
I literally closed the window. I was like, nope.
Bro.
And the only reason I went back into it is because people started posting on Twitter about Gar doing some multiverse shit. And I fucking love multiverse shit. So I was like, fuck it. I will say season 3 does get better. It is another terrible rendition of the Red Hood storyline.
Yeah.
There's just without doing the storyline the way it was done in the comics, there's just no really, like, the animated movie was decent.
Yeah.
Like it was a decent retelling. But even that was lacking.
You know what I hate about the Red Hood story in any version is that we have to skip over a bunch of years.
That's the thing.
They killed Jason Todd, and he was gone in the comics for legitimately for a bunch of years. Decades. And so then when he came back as Red Hood, it still was like a surprise. Wait a minute. Even in the Hush storyline, when it's the first time you see him again, you're like, oh, is that Clayface? They lead you to believe like, wait a minute. Maybe that was Clayface. And Bruce is like, but maybe it wasn't. And then it's like another X amount of years. And then the Red Hood comes out. And then it is a mystery because you're like, wait a minute. Because again, you're thinking he's actually dead because he's been dead this entire time.
Right.
So you have to skip a bunch of stuff. I also hated Titans. I was done with Titans when Bruce is arguing with Jason Todd in a random ass alley. And they're talking about their superhero identities and the Joker. I was like, people can hear you, bro.
Oh,
Why are you arguing with this kid in
then you
Italian?
should not watch the rest of it.
I was like, I
Season
just couldn't.
4, everybody knows their identities.
I was just
Season
like, just,
4, legitimately everybody knows their identities. Jason told Crane everything in season 3.
of course.
So Crane
Of
knows
course.
everything. Something you didn't get to see, but I'm gonna tell you now because I think it's fucking the biggest piece of bullshit in that entire show. Barbara was never Batgirl.
Someone told me that, and I was like, "This." Oh, Malachi actually, my friend Malachi was like, "Oh, and Babs was never," and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Babs was never. In fact, her and Dick were a heist couple for a while. They ran high value art heists in Gotham, and I was like, Batman never showed up to those.
Right. You know, he got a tracker on the.
There was a string of heists. Catwoman
right,
didn't show up to just be like, "Who's my fucking competition?"
Right.
Yes, there was. Right. It was. They want to do this stuff. They talk about these other characters in season 4. They brought up both Rex Tyler and Vixen, 2 characters who have never been in this show, and never got to be in the show. But we talked about. But it's like we want to talk about this bigger universe that it exists. But it's like they went to Metropolis in season 4 so that Khan could meet Clark. But Clark was called away on to stop I think it was a rogue black hole.
What did he do? Did he punch it? Because I mean, okay, look, man, like, and again, I look.
But everyone at Star Labs knew their identities. Everyone,
at the risk of like DC being mad at me. And look, generally, if you ever see this and you see my interviews, you know how much I love you and your work. You know how much I love DC. I cannot stand that they have Superman do this kind of crazy shit where it's like I'm a hero that doesn't. No, not Dr. Light, not the Atom, not anybody who could potentially counter a black hole, infinite darkness with like infinite light or anything else, graviton, any fucking thing. They have Superman go do it. He can't. It just drives me.
They could have said he was called away to another. They could have just said he was called away to an emergency on another world.
There's problems over in Kondak, and Superman has to go and see about it. Super easy. I just again, I love these things so much, and I look, I even love plot holes. I'm not a big continuity guy, really. I don't give a shit. I was in when Dominic Toretto jumped across a bridge, caught Letty, hit a windshield, didn't even have a cut, nor did his shirt get dirty.
That shit was G. That shit was
right.
G.
Like, look,
that was the most G moment of that whole series.
I'm all about it. I have no problem with it. I will suspend my imagination.
People ask online, apparently, when is it that they jumped the shark into superhero territory? And I was like, that was it. That moment right there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he flew. Like, there's just no way.
Right.
He flew.
And no one was hurt.
Nobody was hurt. No concussion, nothing.
Nothing. Not a thing. I love it.
And then, was it the same movie or the movie after? No, it was the movie after where he dropped an entire building on himself.
Yeah, by stomping on it.
Died.
He stomped concrete. He stomped a building to death.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing.
And then he died and then just came back.
Right, because of family. All she did was hug him. Not heart compressions, nothing. She gave him a hug and he was like, oh, shit, bro, hey, family. All about it.
Did you see you saw 9, so you saw 10, so you saw 9.
Yeah.
When John Cena shows up into the chase, so he's like, I can get to him. I looked at my wife in full volume. I was like, family.
right. It's so
nothing matters. Nothing matters with family in this.
He Tarzan. Okay, in a car, he Tarzan swung.
I saw that
one mountain to another mountain, smashed into the mountain's wall, and then drove off. I was like, this is the greatest movie series in the history of movie series.
I saw that trailer and I was like, because that was like the last shot in the trailer.
Yeah.
I stopped it and I was like, did this man just Spider-Man a fucking car?
Right. It's just the greatest shit ever. Like, again, I feel like if you don't like this, you're not having fun. You're not having fun at the movies at this point.
Yeah. It's like you are not going there. Look, listen, I will say the first one, it was an early 2000s movie. It was what it was.
Yeah. It was Point Break with cars. You know what I mean?
I gave up any notion of expecting anything from these films when Brian said, I want to talk about it, cuh.
Right.
Oh,
greatest movie.
Like, when Brian was suddenly, inexplicably, and only for the length of that movie, the most hood he's ever been.
Right.
Like, I am more hood than Brian fucking Spillner.
There are three lines in that movie that make the entire franchise. That one, ejecto-cedo, cuz. And at the very end, these pockets ain't empty, cuz. And I was like, where is the best? It's the best.
But the follow-up, the response to that last one is better. And we ain't hungry no more neither.
That's great.
I was
Tez
like,
went,
that's
Tez
fucking
went
outstanding.
from Sea-Doo races to he's a tech genius.
And can summon with a phone call the most expensive and advanced fucking vault in existence.
Yeah,
just with a phone call can get another one.
I know somebody,
and what? Nobody knows it got there.
Right.
And his response to how did you get this? I had a life before I met you.
Like, oh,
can I see those movies?
Right. Well, thank you.
I'll take a trilogy of that.
Right, James Bond. Actual James Bond. Yeah, no, I love it. Man.
Han
comes back to life. Hey, Han, how'd you come back to life? Don't ask me no questions.
He has a.
Don't worry about it.
Mr. Nobody has a way of making people see what he wants them to see. And I was like, that doesn't answer the question at all.
Right.
Like, you were in the car and then you weren't in the car. How?
Right. I watched this man kill you.
Like, twice in two different movies.
Right. It's the thing. Okay. Yeah, man.
Nah, that's just so fucking great.
It's great entertainment.
Yeah, it's pure entertainment. Exactly.
It's a popcorn movie, right? Like, go and have fun and eat your popcorn. Like, again, don't get me wrong. I was watching the latest one, and there were a couple like lines and little, not plot points, right? Because plot's out the window. I don't give a shit. But like dialogue and delivery, things that happen, and I was like, that's fucking stupid. But in the next 27 seconds, I forgot it because I was like, okay, that car just did something cool. Yeah. Right? Like, oh, they jumped off of another fucking building. Okay, great.
It's dude, a subplot of 9 is we're immortal because of plot.
Right. Right.
Have you noticed that we're immortal because we are the heroes of the story? Right. Like that's
an actual thing. Yeah.
Those are lines in the movie.
Right. It doesn't get any more meta than that.
Like he walked out into gunfire just to prove that he couldn't be shot.
Right.
And then they went to fucking space.
Right, space. And then space. Right. In a non-sealed, non-pressurized. Yeah, I love it, man. Like I said.
But that's
the Rock threw a torpedo. You know what I mean? The Rock is a buff dude, right? Like, I'm not saying he's not. He buff as hell. It's a torpedo, though. Like, I don't know if anybody has ever actually even been to a maritime museum and held, like, because you can, they let you hold it like a torpedo. They let you a piece of a torpedo because the shit weighs hundreds of pounds. Empty.
We were last summer. We were at the Chicago Science and Industry because they had the Marvel exhibit. So after we finished with the Marvel exhibit, we went through and we saw one of the big ass fucking submarines, and I saw that shit and I was like that bitch is big. Like, I had a perception in my brain, but then when you are standing next to one, when you see the tiny corridor inside of it that people have to run through to fix shit, I'm like, nah, dude.
Right, exactly. Right. We've really watched like too many movies and like honestly cartoons, because cartoons give you like, oh, fire the torpedoes, and it's like this easy thing. It's like pew pew. No. No, it's it's a process. It is
a whole thing.
Yeah.
It's that is, and I think the fact that series exists and is so popular and so successful, I think keeps me kind of grounded when I go to the movies. Right? I put my expectations on the floor every time I walk in, because I know that it could go fucking south. It will never go as south as Blood Rain, because I have to this day never finished that movie, because even then, which was 2004, when I had no fucking clue about who I was, let alone the shit I liked, but I could not finish that fucking movie.
Right. Oh yeah.
And then I was like, for giggles, let me put in Blood Rain 2. By the way, Brian,
Ooh.
there are 4 of them now.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
okay, you know what makes me mad about stuff like that? I can't get funding, right? Like I'm like, I give props to all the people that worked on this film, right? Right. That's what it is. Everybody who worked on this film, look, I'm proud of you guys. I know you guys have reached your dream in some form or fashion. I'm not trying to take that away from you, but fuck, I know I could do a better job. Just like give me some of that budget, and I'm gonna have like a cartoon series or a couple. I'm gonna have something that's gonna be like, oh damn, that was dope as fuck. That shit drives me crazy. But I also feel like, look, Fast and the Furious proves that there's no such thing as superhero fatigue, right? What there is like mediocre movie fatigue, right? If you're going to be entertained, purely to be entertained, you're gonna go have fun at a good movie. Because Fast and the Furious, that's not cinema. They're not like good movies, right? They're very fun movies that are entertaining, and that's what they're there for. And that's what people are expecting Endgame from every Marvel movie now. And we forget that, like, no, some of these shits they're just supposed to be fun. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Iron Man 1 was just a fun movie. It wasn't a treatise on life. It was fun.
Listen, Iron Man 1 was not peak cinema, but for me, it was a near perfect film because it did everything it needed to, top to bottom. And then at the end, it did the one thing that every movie should want to do. It left you wanting more.
Exactly.
And I think the difference here in phase 5 now, that we are in, I think that the difference is that now we expect more.
Yeah.
So we expect more, but people have conflated more movies with more everything, more explosions, more heroes, more crossovers, more multiverse.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be that. It can't always be that because I did a TikTok about this recently. You can either reset or keep escalating the situation. You look at Power Rangers, right? They kept getting more powers and more powers and more powers, and then they were like, we gotta take some of these powers away from these motherfuckers. Otherwise,
zero. Because how could they lose?
And then they were like, all right, cool. It's a whole new team. They don't have no skills, no nothing. They don't know nothing. They got to learn these powers again. And then they were like, all right, cool. That works every season. Then for fucking years, it was the same. Yeah. Because guess what happened then every time? Because not last few, but like a few times since then, they've gone and done 2 seasons of the same team. Mm-hmm. They end up having to get like ridiculous powers. So it's like by the second season of Samurai, they had like the Battleizers and the fucking Super Zord and all this. And it's like you end up just escalating the shit because you have to. Because it's like, as an audience, people are going to want the shit they want. But it's shit is going to get boring unless you do something new. So, with Bond, they reset the Bond. So now it's like, all right, how's this guy going to handle shit? How swaggy is he going to be?
Yeah.
And the more recent Bond, he's a little more swole. He's got a little more fight in him, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody has a different take on something because if you keep it the same thing, it will get boring. It's going like if it was all Iron Man 1, if we got a string of origin movies and no sequels and no combined movie, it would have been boring.
Right. Remember when it was getting boring, right? Like not to me, but like again to the critics in the outside world. After you had Captain America: The First Soldier, people were like, "Oh, why did we go back and do a origin movie?" And then again, when you get Captain America and the Winter Soldier, though, then people are like, "Oh, this is the greatest thing ever." Yeah, you gotta let people tell their stories and do their thing, right? Like,
but people don't want to do that. They got Endgame, so now they want fucking Endgame 2.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They want Endgame again. What? They want Endgame some more.
Right. Yeah.
For a lot of, I think for a lot of the diehards, there's a lot of headcanon I've noticed in the fan space of especially like what happened to Steve afterwards and all this other shit. Whereas for me, I take what's on screen.
Yeah.
Like what happened is what happened.
Right.
And if it's like with DC, I had to do a little mental gymnastics to explain some shit away because I fought my cousin for a year and a half about Batman being so goddamn emotional that he wanted to kill Superman. And then I was like, this is not the Batman from the comics. It's not the Batman from any of the movies. This is not that dude.
Yeah.
And if it just took me so long to just like, I'm like, unless you're just gonna tell me that the Batman in this universe, Bruce Wayne in this universe, is just so fucking emotional. He's just
Mhm.
over emotional. And then I was like, you know what? I'm like, that actually works for me because I'm gonna just say
Right.
that. They didn't say that
Right.
on screen, but I said that to explain away the inaccuracy to what I perceive to be the
Right.
character's expression. So then when they did Wonder Woman 84, it was like 1984. I was like, Bruce Wayne be about 15 years old around this time. He got one wish. He
Got
would
his
wish his
parents back.
parents back. And then a superpowered being told him he had to send them back again.
Right. Yep.
That
Oh, okay.
makes even more sense now. And it was like
Right.
Patty Jenkins wasn't trying to do that, but
Yeah.
because I had set up the emotional thing, like I needed the headcanon to explain that shit away
Yeah.
and make that a cohesive universe. I
Yeah.
am in the middle of something. You could definitely smack me with a wad of cash. Please do.
We could talk Kickstarter and end it up. I gotta go myself. I gotta work in the morning. I don't mean to keep you. You know me and you could talk forever.
Nah, that's good. No, my wife was she takes a lot of fucking side jobs and shit. So she was at work all day. She
Mm.
apparently got some tips,
Yes. Ooh,
which
nice. Nice.
but to get back to fucking Kickstarter and to your shit as opposed to DC shit. You are currently doing Justice what 1 through 5?
1 through 4. So
One
this
through
is
four.
the last issue of the first story arc. First
Okay.
story arc is 4 issues. So this is the bow tie on just that story arc. Obviously not Justice's story completely, but just to the climactic, end chapter of his original coming down to Earth. Again, for people who have read the other issues, for some of you that haven't, there are gonna be some mild spoilers. But he comes down because the voice of God is missing, and our non-denominational God, if they were to speak, it would be the story of creation over again, right? Because like God says, "Let there be light," right? And then that's when the Big Bang happens, all this other stuff. So in our universe, if God speaks again, man, everything gets destroyed and recreated in an instant, because the being is that powerful, right?
Sure.
So God wants to send a message to the world, and like he's done in the historical context in the Bible, God speaks through a proxy, the burning bush, whatever. So the voice of God is missing. That's what brings justice down in the originally, to find the voice of God so they can do their thing, so the whole universe doesn't get destroyed. And so in issue 1, he meets Billy Delisante as she's getting attacked by vampires. We call them Children of the Night. And again, that sets off a bunch of different events. Going into issue 2, where he goes to talk to the father of the Children of the Night, the father of vampires, who was actually Judas Iscariot. So there's a bunch of, they've got some interaction. Obviously, Justice has got some interaction with Judas Iscariot there, which then leads him to the next piece, right? Because he gets attacked, and the voice of God finally finds him, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm here to protect you. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm here to do the thing I've always been doing." And she's basically like, "You're an idiot. You didn't protect me. Like, you were low key my servant. Like, I gave you orders. Like, you fight, but like I'm the dude." And he's like, "Wait, what? Excuse me?" And she's like, "Yeah, like kind of you don't know what you're talking about. Like figure your shit out, kind of." And that leads into issue 3, and he goes to get answers. So where would an angel go to get answers? Justice has gone one of 2 places both times. In issue 0, when he originally comes down, he goes to get, first place he goes to talk to Morningstar, because who knows more than him? He was created perfect in beauty and wisdom, right? So he's the
Right.
guy, right? So you got to confront him immediately. That's part of it. So in issue 3, we see Justice actually go down into hell to go get answers, because again, that's going to hold not the totality of human existence, right? But the majority of it. There's like a
Right.
lot that goes on to it. And obviously our structure of hell is a little bit different than just fire and brimstone. There's fire and
Right.
brimstone too, but
Sure.
it's not only that, right?
Right.
And then in there, I think you'll like it. I don't know if you saw it, but if you didn't in issue 3, I think something that you would like. I did an homage to Spawn issue 10, and also not Image, but Wizard magazine number 25. So in Spawn issue 10, Spawn goes down into hell. It's the issue with him and Cerebus.
Yeah.
So he goes down into hell in part of that issue, and Spawn ends up talking to Superman. But it's this really cool thing I thought Todd McFarlane did. Superman's in shadow, so you like really can't see his face.
Oh,
But you see the blue and the red
you're talking
costume.
about the big prison scene, right? Where everybody's
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Right. So again, man, growing up, I wasn't I didn't have the money I have now, right? So like when I think a friend ended up giving me Wizard 25. Man, again, that's one of those books that I read 100 times till the cover fell off. I just loved, well, one, that whole issue of Image anyway. I mean, of Wizard anyway. I loved it. It had a bunch of Image stuff in there. It had some Astro City stuff behind the like behind the scenes stuff. I had
I
just
love
never
that.
seen anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So that Wall of Hands had a contest, and it was like all the different hands. Could you name them all? So we did something like that in Justice #3, where it's actually there's a line, and again, light spoilers, guys, but it still looks cool, so go check it out. It's a double page spread, and Justice is basically looking out over hell, and there are 3 people who are hung on X's.
Okay.
And it's Superman, Thor, and Icon from Milestone Comics. Then there's also a row of prisoners that are all chained up, and it's got a bunch of different heroes that you could tell. It's all in sepia tones. It's all used for parody. It's all, you know, like fair use wise in terms of I'm not stealing any icons or doing anything like that.
Sure,
but
sure,
I
sure.
loved that imagery that McFarlane used. And so in addition to that, we use a certain Hellspawn makes an appearance ostensibly in that same issue in the same fashion that Superman made that appearance in issue 10. You know what I mean? So it's like in heavy shadow and on and on and on.
Nice.
Again, it's one of those parody and fairly used things where you kind of know who it is.
Sure.
But again,
it's the implication. It's the implication.
Yes. I'm not using it. I didn't say, oh, hey, Spawn's in my comic, so people will buy the comic more. It's purely an homage to a form of storytelling that just blew my mind.
It's a great pop culture reference, is what it is.
Yeah,
and those are always good. Those are always good. Those bring, you know, those bring the audience and bring the reader into the know, right? They're like, oh, I know what that is, and it's like I get the concept of this, and I always like that. I always like that kind of stuff. Like when they're, you know, I think a lot of probably people who don't read comics missed it. But in like the first Deadpool movie, the whole final fight happens on a helicarrier.
Yeah, right.
And the first time I saw that,
cool.
I was like,
yeah,
did they do that? Did they?
Right.
I was like, that's wild that they did that.
Right. You kind of look around to see if other people are getting it like you are. Like you see it. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of good shit.
Yeah. So again, we had a lot of fun. So issue 3 leads us there. Justice gets a few answers. He comes away with actually more questions. And at the end of issue 3, he's looking for the Master of Beasts, the first murderer, Cain. So we go into issue 4 knowing that Cain and Judas Iscariot have kind of teamed up because they want to be what we call the Lords under the firmament, right? So again, it's kind of, Justice is based off of Christian mythology. It is not a religious book, but just as Thor uses Norse mythology as its background, or Hercules, you know, uses Greek, and Wonder Woman uses Greek and all this other stuff, right? Mummies Alive use Egyptian mythology, right? Like to make this cartoon.
Great reference. I love Mummies Alive.
I love Mummies Alive. Was so dope, so underrated. So Justice uses Christian mythology as its base. I say all that to say, like, the Lord in the Christian Bible, right? Like the Lord is heaven and all this stuff is above the firmament, right? And hell is in its own place. So these guys want to be lords under the firmament, which, again, if you silence God, because, you know, again, according to the Christian Bible, God says he's not going to destroy the world. And like the next time is like in fire, you know, Revelation and all that stuff, right? So if the voice of God is not there, he can't speak. You've just silenced God effectively.
Right.
And so if they can do that, then they can be lords under the firmament and have a kingdom of their own, which is earth. It sucks for us, right? But
usually does.
right. As we started this, if it's not AI, if it's not robots, it's werewolves and vampires.
Yeah.
So we start issue 4, which is the beginning of the end, with Justice rushing towards the end, right? You're rushing towards damnation, basically. And we see how he's able to either tackle that or not, given the circumstances and what the ripple effects of whatever choice he makes are.
So for the people who maybe found you through the Nightfall campaign and all that, where does Nightfall take place in this? Because I know Justice is in it, where in the timeline, you know, like you said, you're not necessarily a big continuity guy, but I definitely am. So I need to know, am I reading Nightfall first and then Justice, or am I reading Justice 1 and then Nightfall? You know, like.
Yeah. So let me clarify. For my stuff, 100% a continuity guy. For Fast and the Furious, never, because I'm not going to drive myself fucking crazy. But no, okay. So Justice, okay. In Wingless Comics itself, our title Immortalis is based in the past, because it's the fall of the last Roman outpost, right? So that's the actual past.
Okay.
Then we start with Justice 0 through number 5. That is all pre-Nightfall. Then Nightfall happens, and everything after Justice number 5, to include her number 1, to include Scarlet Knight number 3, to include Avery number 2, all of that is post Nightfall.
Okay, so her 0 is after Nightfall too, or her 0 is pre-Nightfall?
Her 0 is like during Nightfall.
Oh, okay.
Right. Like so it's the her timetable happens it kind of coincides like right with Nightfall. So you could say like maybe right before her appearance in Nightfall, she's done the her 0 stuff.
Gotcha.
But not like, I don't want to say, oh yes, you know, years before. I don't want people to think it's far away, because number 1 obviously picks up after Nightfall, and it's pretty recent. Number 1 is pretty recent after 0.
Gotcha.
So there is to make it less difficult for people, right? There actually is a timeline on the Wingless Comics Instagram that gives all the books kind of, and you know, we did the Marvel way where you can see the timeline.
That's dope.
Spread out. It's a pinned post, so everybody can check it out. I guess I'll put it on TikTok. I'm horrible about my TikTok, but I'll put it on TikTok soon so we can kind of.
I have noticed that you're like silent for a while, and then you interact a lot, and you were there, and you post, and then you silent for a while.
Right. It's hard. Not everybody has this, and I guess that when we're doing interviews like this and we're doing other things, maybe it doesn't seem like that, right? But like, I don't know if I have social anxiety, but I have like recording anxiety, right? I'll sit down to record something, and I'm like, everything is stupid. I want to do this, and I just go away, right? And then I'm like, I'll come back, and I'm like, or Danny Quick will tag me in something, and Danny knows how to get under my skin. He knows something that's going to get under my skin, and I'm going to be like, I have to respond to this thing because now I'm pissed.
Danny's exploring a lot. I appreciate what he's doing. He's like, he's dipping his toes into a lot of different things, and I like it.
Yeah. He's also, obviously, he's a really cool guy. I'm actually the editor on Ace Blade, on the current, you know, his current 5 issue run, 6 through 11 or whatever. Danny's my guy, man, and I like the fact that Danny's pretty fearless. He puts himself out there in a way that's funny, that's irreverent, that's all these other things. And that's not easy to do. It's because we live in this age where everybody's got an opinion, right? And even if you don't like something, you could just keep scrolling, but people aren't. They're going to be like, I don't like that, and it's stupid. Bro, you didn't need to say that. You could have just left me alone. So it's very, I think it's very courageous of him to do that. I don't have the wherewithal for that all the time, right? Like, I had a company to run, I got books to write, I got books to edit, things to do. So the mental strain or stress, and sometimes trying to stay ahead of the algorithm, it's a little bit more than I want to do, right? Like, it's because it's a full-time job. It's a full-time set of work, depending on what it's for, right? If I'm trying to do that for my publishing company, it is a full-time job. I got to do it across Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you know, Twitter. Make sure it's all out there. Make sure post, you know, the tips are post 3 times a day. All you gotta do is post 3 times a day, bro. Do you know how difficult that is? It's not a full-time job, man. I got a life, you know. So
and that number changes. That number goes up and down depending on the platform. It very much varies. Like I've been talking to my cousin about doing short form, and you know, he's like, I don't want to fucking put the same shit out there. I'm like, yeah, but no one's gonna see all of it. No one, literally, no one is gonna see all of it. Yeah, like, because people are like the stuff that the algorithm as it pertains to people. You're gonna see way different shit. Like I was on YouTube today because I was uploading some stuff, and I was like, oh, I need to download this video so I can edit. And I go to this page, and I'm like, this was a recent video. Like, I'm staring at this, you know, list of videos, and then I realized they've got a new fucking like filter system, and it starts with for you. So like it decides what you should be looking at. I'm like, if I click videos, I want to see all the videos in chronological fucking order.
Yeah, I hate that. Right. Like, it's not helpful. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so, no, the stuff always changes. So yeah, chasing the algorithm is a surefire way to fucking give yourself a fucking ulcer.
Right. And honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong, I have to do it, and I know,
Sure.
I've been doing a few more lives, every couple days when I can, do it or whatever. But I'd rather write really dope shit, to be honest with you, right?
I feel you.
And maybe a lot of people will say that, right? Maybe a lot of people will say, hey, I'm writing this comic and it's great, right? Because they believe in it and they love it, and I'm all for them and for that. But I'm gonna be fucking me right now, and me and that person are not the same. I legitimately believe, right? And I will stake it against any fucking professional right now, even if we're talking about Hickman, who I'm like, fuck, man, Hickman writes some crazy shit that I don't know if I can necessarily do. But I would put Justice 1 through 4 against any of Hickman's run, right? And I'm talking about his X-Men stuff. I'm talking about his Avengers stuff. That was great shit. Now, people may be like, oh, we still like Hickman better. Okay, cool. But I'm in that conversation skill-wise, story-wise, narratively, world building, etc. And I think that's very important. Again, people don't have to agree with me with that.
Right.
People may say I'm full of shit or whatever, but there's not going to be anyone who can prove that I'm full of shit, right? There's not going to be anyone who can go by the numbers and say, hey, this is why you're completely wrong about your assessment of your own material.
Right.
And I would rather put my energy to doing that and making something great, as opposed to, again, trying to chase the algorithm to no avail.
It's very dicey on social, especially these days, especially with, every few months somebody freaks out and it's like, oh, we're gonna ban XYZ. It's like the shit happening in Montana right now. They like outright ban TikTok, but like, what the fuck does that mean? They haven't fucking clarified what it means.
Right.
Like, fucking Google's not gonna spend tens of millions of dollars to make an app store just for Montana.
Exactly.
Like,
makes zero sense. Like, what? Yeah,
none of that shit's gonna make none of that shit's. But it's like we see it all happening. So as content creators, we're sitting here like, shit. Like, I spent a week trying to figure out, am I going to Mastodon if Twitter goes down? Am I going to I'm trying to figure out. But then it's like, Twitter didn't fucking go anywhere. Twitter didn't go down. I still get engagement on Twitter. Like, I think the main thing that a lot of indie creators miss out on, and because it's such a, like you said, time consuming and daunting thing to have to do multiple posts a day. You've got multiple platforms you got to satisfy, and as much as it would be great to be like, all right, cool, I made this one thing, I'm just going to post it across all three. They all want different things. Some want a little shorter, some want a little longer, some want this, some want that. And to actually be successful in the long run, you do have to monitor, your engagement, your watch times, and these things. All of it matters in the long run. It's a very daunting fucking task. But 100%. I think a lot of indie creators, and like, there are some people who I like I talk to, like, I'm first name basis with people, and they don't put out the amount of content, like any content. So let alone that they don't put out the amount of content that they should. So then when I see, a campaign chugging across the finish line, just like scraping together the last 10, 20, 30 bucks, I feel bad, because it's like the solution is there, but it's like, like you said, you are out there writing the shit. You gotta make the thing.
But I would also challenge, like, is it there? Right? Okay, as it pertains to TikTok, right? What about the dude who had he had like 4.1 million followers? He put out his short film for $10 and he made like $2,000 back, right? Like 10, 20 people watched, out of 4 million. You got King Lion, right? King Lion has 500,000 followers or some shit like that, right? He put out Flame. He put out the trade, or whatever, the volumes of Flame. He got look. If all those
was that before Black Sands?
No. Post back Black Sands, man. Now, don't get me wrong. He made money. I'm not saying he didn't.
Sure.
What I am saying is that with 500,000 followers, if everybody gives you $1, you have $500,000, right? What I'm saying is he didn't get anywhere near that.
He didn't get anywhere near that because his content is not just the thing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with that.
I watched his stuff probably for 3-4 months. Straight. Before I ever knew he had a comic book. And it's the ratio. Now, his engagement, his growth, all of it's predicated on the versus stuff, and like, he makes a few dollars off of that or whatever. But that is not going to drive like that. That's when you start looking into conversion rates, right? The reality of that is 500,000 is I keep going back to this number because I've seen it consistently across different things. So I usually look for a 4% conversion. So 500,000, 4% is going to Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And then 4% of the people that get there are maybe gonna like, and that'd be a good day.
No, that's 100%.
So that's the thing is like if it's 500,000, 4% is what, 40,000? No, 4,000.
Yeah.
So or 5,000, right? So it's 5,000. 4% of that, it's like it's like 800. Yeah, like
yeah. No,
know,
you're knocking it down considerably. Again, don't get me wrong. I 100% agree with you, right? But that's the problem. You know what I mean? Like again, we got X amount of followers on the Wingless Comics page. Are we going to get every one of them over there? Not even near that, right? And so again, some of these things, they're not necessarily fruitless battles, right? But sometimes you're better when you're, you know, person to person, when you and I are talking, and then so you tell another person, right? Or people catch your podcast looking at you and see me, and you know, it's just it's all marketing, right? It's all timing. Some of it's fucking luck. And people who say it's not some of it luck, that's a fucking lie. Because you know, the right phrase at the right time that hits the right zeitgeist, and you know, so again, it's something that I love doing in terms of creating and doing what we got to do and building up this company and doing on and on and on. But you know, it's a full-time job on top of a full-time job on top of a full-time job.
Are you doing shows? Like, are you doing like conventions locally?
Yeah, but rarely though. Honestly, I only do maybe one a quarter right now.
Okay.
Because again, that's one of those things, right? Okay, so let's say that let's say I can get into San Diego Comic-Con. Great show, huge show, hundreds of thousands of people, right?
The conversion there is like 2%.
Exactly, and thousands of dollars in order to get there, right?
And so that's why I said specifically local.
Yeah,
like you got to go smaller, you got to go local.
The big shows that you can, it also depends on where you're at, right? You go to C2E2 Artist Alley, people treat C2E2 Artist Alley completely different than they treat Artist Alley in San Diego Comic-Con. You got to know your audiences. The West Coast is the West Coast for a reason. Hollywood, even though it's in San Diego, right? Hollywood is Hollywood. You can go down to LA Comic-Con even, right? Which is right in the middle of things. Artist Alley, none of them give a shit. They want Funko Pops. They want all the cutesy stuff, right? Because the audiences are different.
I've never been to San Diego Comic-Con, but as a consumer of the culture, movie announcements happen at San Diego. Comic book announcements happen at New York.
Exactly.
Because that's where comics come from.
Yeah, exactly. So don't get me wrong. San Diego is bomb. I've gone a number of years, right? Like I went to San Diego before it's like what it was now. Like I call it the pre-Avatar years, because I feel like when the first Avatar came out, that's when the culture of San Diego Comic-Con kind of changed. And it did become more movie focused and MCU and all these other things, right? So I was going before that, and I've gone after. It's an experience. I love it. I'll never say I don't. All the displays and the cosplay and the people, and I can go down to Viz Media and get the Robotech figures, man. They were the con exclusive that you see back there. I couldn't find them anywhere else, right? But I knew, hey, they're going to be there. They said they're going to get, okay, cool. I love all of this stuff, right? It's great. But like I said, it is a very Hollywood scene. LA Comic-Con is a very Hollywood scene. Some of the, again, like you mentioned, some of the smaller cons, you're going to go and eat. You're going to make more money at a smaller con than you are these larger cons.
Well, your table's going to be $150, $200.
Right, exactly. And if you have a half decent product, you should be able to make $200. Yeah, exactly. So again, it's great. The larger cons out west are a little bit more, they're harder sales.
Sure.
Even for the big companies, right? Because people want the big company stuff. Indies out west are a little bit of a harder sale. It can happen, but they're a little bit harder sale at big shows on the East Coast. People statistically, I know them because I talk to them. Statistically, indies do really well. Again, at C2E2 at New York. There's one in Florida that they do really well at, and then there's one, so maybe like Ohio, it's somewhere awkward, where they do really well, right? And these are bigger shows, right? But even Fan Expo out here in Utah, right? Fan Expo is huge. Do they care about indies? Again, man, it's a very dicey, very hard sale. And you got to make sure that you're not wasting more money than you're gaining going to shows.
Sure.
Like you've got to get the benefit out of it in terms of names, in terms of people who are going to continue to follow you, in terms of even pictures and marketing materials and stuff. And so I'm not going to go out every weekend to go to another show, because then I'm just burning money at that point. Even if I make $100 a day, you're still ultimately burning money.
Yeah.
And not getting the value back for it. So all that to say, I do about one show a quarter so far, and I'm building up our status
Were
as
you
far as
at
the sales
C2E2?
goes. Nah, I got a couple friends that went, but
Okay.
no, I don't. Brian doesn't like planes, man. Brian does not like planes. If you get me out there, man, maybe, but like I need way more meds than I have at the moment in order to fly out somewhere to go to a show. That's another thing though, too, right? Another thing that people in this industry don't take into account. Oh, I'm from the West Coast, I'm gonna go to C2E2. Bro, you gotta fly out there, you gotta ship your books out there, you gotta get a room out there, you gotta get transport out there. Like they're just, and then you gotta get back. And they got to burn all that time at work too, right? You know what I mean? Like logistically, there are a lot of things that go into this entire industry and making this industry profitable for yourself that people kind of don't take into account sometimes, and you've got to.
Well, man, I'm a give you the offer because I like you, man. You're a good dude. If you ever do decide to come out this way, I got you for transportation. So at the very least,
I appreciate you. Yeah. Again, if my girlfriend is a traveler and she wants to travel, so I've made the agreement with her. She got to give me some time, but I'll get some like anti-anxiety meds to kind of calm myself down and do my thing so we can go places. So I figure in the next couple of years I'll be hitting the East Coast a little bit more. I got to go down to DC to go see Malachi, and there's a show down there. BlurredCon happens every year, which is a pretty big show for us. Again, New York, I want to do New York at least once. I want to do C2E2 at least once. So again, we'll branch out, but again, that's another thing that I think that indie creators do too many things. And I know this may sound stupid coming from a guy who launched one comic and then went right into a crossover, and then let's launch her and let's launch Immortalis. But all these things are really planned out and plotted out of how we're going to do it and then the time we're going to do it. A lot of creators have a lot of ideas, so they want to do 9 things at once and don't create the infrastructure to do that, right? So it's like, oh, I'm gonna go to all these shows, but you don't even have the books. You don't even have the money to do.
Believe me, brother. I know. I was that guy. I just finished this novella last year, and I've been editing it and getting it prepped, and I'm figuring out like the chapter art and stuff like that. I'm gonna be working on the cover art soon. I went that set in a universe, a comic book universe that I've got the script for. I've got the first arc script done. I just need to pay an artist, and that costs money.
Yeah, right.
But I commissioned 2 prints. I commissioned 2 pieces that I made prints with, black and white. I got a table, and I sat there with a book of these this is what these characters look like. My terrible pitch at the time. And 2 prints. I made $15. I sold 3 prints.
Hey, yeah, right.
But like, I don't have any customers out of that. I don't have anybody. I had nothing. That was a complete. I mean, look, it was fun. It was entertaining. I shared the table with my boy. Like, it was a great day, great weekend. I don't have anything to show for it.
Yeah.
You absolutely, like, as a creator, when you need to have product has to be ready. Product has to be ready. I mean, hell, you can even look at something like with Kickstarters, right? How many Kickstarters have been fully funded, and then it's months, years sometimes. I mean, fuck. Go back to goddamn Rob Liefeld. Rob Liefeld took an entire decade to fulfill a single issue. Rob fucking Liefeld.
That's crazy, right? Dude, I have people, what I hate about it, I have people on my back after a month, and I'm like, bro, I told y'all printing was going to take 3 months.
I am going to get pretty slanderous in about 2 episodes once I get my fucking copy of a issue that I've been waiting for that was supposed to deliver in September. I only paid $5. It's a digital copy, but for me it's the principle, because it's exactly what we're talking about. It is they went super wide. They have a ton of fucking titles that they put out. But I still gotta wait almost a fucking year to get my single digital copy.
There's a creator who I like, and I've met personally. We've actually tabled next to each other at conventions. He's very successful. I won't say his name, but he's worked for Blizzard. He's worked for DC. He's worked for every company basically as a writer that you can talk about. He's done some cartoon work, done some series work. Great guy. 2.5 years for this fucking comic, and I'm like, I don't want to hear like, oh, I'm looking for somebody, bro. You got one. If I can make a comic, you can make a comic because you got money. I know you can pay this create. You know what I mean? Finish it up. I'm tired of, oh, well, we had some delays, and COVID really set us back, bro. That's 2 years ago now. Stop it. There's no such thing as COVID delays in 2023. Like that's not. Come on now.
No,
But you know,
they
that's
ran
just
out. They ran out of paper in 2021. Motherfuckers still got comics out. Stop.
right, right. I never had a problem.
But like
Never.
there were like
And I'm just
massive
a little
paper
guy.
shortages, and but like
Yeah, yeah.
people still got
But
their
if you
shit out.
planned ahead, if
Exactly.
you did business, you know what I mean? Like it didn't matter. But you know, whatever. It is
Like
what it is.
it all. I have one, and I keep on his back. Sean Aline, I'll put it out there because I give him shit about this all the time. Every time he say going to a show, I hit him like, "Oh, you gonna bring that issue?" Because he did his campaign in 2012. He is the first campaign I ever backed on Kickstarter, and to this day has not produced the comic.
Wow.
He told me recently that the next few months were going to be interesting, but he said that before. But I told him, I was like, the day I can put a check mark next to the first Kickstarter I ever backed to indicate that I received it will be a beautiful fucking day, my friend.
Man, you have stalker journals or whatever that before.
Like it's people, but like he does a lot of work, and like look, he had some life stuff and family stuff. Like I completely understand life shit. What I don't understand is like somebody like Steve Siegel, who is a Marvel like known dude. He wrote X-Men for like a decade.
Yeah.
Not Steve Siegel, Scott Lobdell. I keep because they like wrote X-Men around the same time. Scott Lobdell did a fucking book. Brett Booth did the art. So like the 90s dudes, that book's still not out.
Damn.
I only put $6 into it, but there are people who put 500 into it.
Yeah, I was like, but still, like I'd want that book. Like,
and that's big. Then that's been 2 years.
Damn.
And it's like that's why that's my like last comeback to Rob Liefeld after he was like, my life's great. What are you doing with yours? And I said, dude, you lost your IP somehow. You took a decade to put out a single comic. You have money, you have access and opportunity. What the fuck are you doing?
Right.
Like you're not creating shit. Right. I'm not talking about the scraps that Marvel feeds you every once in a while. Oh, here, do this X-Force anniversary that doesn't fucking mean anything because you're gonna basically say, some shit's happening on Krakoa. We're gonna go do this story that no one's ever gonna talk about again. Yeah. Like because he's done that 6 or 7 fucking times now. Like not talking about the scraps that Marvel and DC give him. I'm talking about what the fuck is he doing besides riding off the shit he did 40 years ago. And it's like the fact that you have the resources and like you have the name brand recognition. Scott fucking Lobdell should be able to walk into basically any print shop and be like, I need this printed. They'd be like, cool, we'll move some shit around, Scott. I know you. I read your X-Men run.
You telling me that Comic Wellspring, Scott doesn't hit them up, and Comic Wellspring isn't like, hey Brian, we're gonna have to delay your book by 2 weeks because we got a big order. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of ridiculous. Also, I love this that Rob said, like, I love when people say I'm living a great life. What are you doing? Bro, you're arguing me on Twitter. Your life must not be all that great. Seriously, like, come on. If your life is so great, right? Okay, so I just got back from a cruise, and this is the last thing I'll say. I just got back from a cruise last week, a birthday cruise. I feel like I was living my best life, right? When people say I was living my best life, right? I definitely was. You know what I didn't do for fucking 7 days? I didn't go on fucking Facebook. I didn't go on Twitter. I didn't do any of that shit, right? Because I was actually living a good life. I was actually out there chilling, doing what I wanted to. I was reading a book, right? So when people are like, I'm living a good life, what are you doing? Well, you're not living a good life. You're living the same fucking drudgery that we are. So shut up. It doesn't matter if you have money. Because if you have money and you're so above us, you wouldn't take the time to notice us fucking peons, you idiot. Don't get me started, man.
Hard facts. Hard facts. Hard facts. If you're doing so good, I shouldn't see you on the internet.
Right.
You're too busy having a good time.
Right. It's crazy. It's insane.
So the book is already funded, right?
Yes, sir. Yes. So we cross-funding 2 days ago, a day ago. We cross-funding a day ago. We funded within 3 days.
Nice.
But obviously we need to keep pushing it higher so that we can continue to bring stories, right? We can continue to do what we're doing here. So our initial funding goal is just to make sure that we print it because the book itself is already done. It's already finished production. So the initial funding goal is obviously just to make sure that we can print the issues and send them out to everybody. All the additional funding goes into the next issue, issue 5, and it goes into all the other things that we do with Wingless Comics.
That's fantastic, man. See, I love to hear that because that was another argument I was having on Twitter, is that people were saying that, oh, you need like at least 10,000 just for a single issue comic, and I'm like, no, you don't. No, you. And I went on Comics Wellspring, put in a 22 page issue, and it was like less than $1,000 for like 700 copies or some shit. I was like, who needs 10,000? I'm like, because even if you are, unless the artwork's not done, unless you don't have a book.
Yeah.
But if you have a book, you don't need 10,000.
So this is the thing. This is where it gets, what are numbers, where people sometimes don't understand the numbers, right? And this is how we do it. Basically, whatever number our goal is, right, is, you got to think, you take home half. People always overestimate how much money they're going to take home. So I know if I have, our goal right now is 3,000. We've already passed that. So I knew at 3,000 I was going to use 1,500 for fulfillment, and 1,500 is profit, right? That can go back to the artist, whatever else we got to do. So if I reach that, then everybody gets their book. Now, the last book was funded by the previous, this book was funded by the previous campaign.
Right.
So it's the profit from last campaign. You obviously flip that and make the new one. A lot of times creators want to have that profit and sit on it and have it in their pocket and be like, I made $3,000, right? Like, who cares, right? If you're not putting out another book. Our strategy at Wingless Comics is always, we fronted the first book and we use each subsequent book to pay for the next one, right? So my production costs are different than other people's, but my production costs per book for art are about $5,000 per book.
And that's pencils, inks, colors, full.
Yeah, that's everything. That's letters, colors, editing. That's the entire production of the entire book. That's not the printing, but that's the entire production of the book.
Right.
And I come in, I'd like to say I come in kind of the high mid in terms of per page price and book production price. There are people who do theirs for much less. They don't look as good as mine. I don't know of another way to say it, right?
It is what it is, man. There's mad truth to that.
Right. So again, I would put any Wingless Comics book up next to any Marvel or DC book, and they've been on the same shelves, and people haven't been able to tell the difference in shops, and on and on and on, right? It looks just as good as produced as a mainstream book, and that's part of the point. That's why I pay a little bit more. My price point is a little bit higher. So when people are like, oh, I need 5,000 for to create a book, or 10,000 to create a book, in my mind, right, if I say my goal is 10,000, yes, I'm being serious. But that's because immediately 5,000 of that is for shipping, printing, fulfillment, and that other 5,000 is for the next issue.
Yeah.
How other people do it, look, some of these guys, whatever, right? And they don't ever have money to do new books. But again, that's the business part. That's why you got to be half businessman, half creative. And it does take more. Again, you get family members that are like, oh, I supported your one book that first time. I gave you $50. Like, yeah, thanks, Nana. But that doesn't help when we're on book 6, right? Like, this is a continuous process. And until we get angel investors, it's going to be a continuous process, one that I love, but again, one that's expensive, one that takes money. And honestly, one, again, even though we've crossed over $3,500, we've got more than 30 days left in this campaign, and I need everybody's help, right? Like, I need everybody who hears this, I need everybody who sees this to continue to support. If people like comics and they like good stories, I need them to go and support. I need to push over 10K, right? So that, again, issue 5, we can blow issue 5 out of the water and do the same thing, and we can perpetuate that response and just that kind of synergy.
Exactly, man. I love to hear that. That's what the goal should be. I agree. I think people should be taking the profits and pushing it to the next book, because like you said, you might be able to go out and have a dinner, but if you can't make the next book, you're not going to be eating for a while.
Right, exactly.
Well, let's do you have a direct link?
Yes, I do, somewhere.
Okay, we'll have that on screen and in the description if you're listening. But also always Wingless Comics or Wingless Entertainment on the socials.
All the socials, my friend, all the socials. Touching, we're kissing 3,700 right now again. So, again, we're thankful for every piece that we get. We're thankful for everybody who really supports us, because it is more than just like, oh man, it's cool comic book and went on, blah, 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 blah. People forget that X-Men, or some people don't know, X-Men was canceled, right? Like, Spider-Man has been canceled a bunch of different times. X-Men has been canceled, even other, a bunch of their other titles, a bunch of Batman titles. Everything has been canceled and started again. The only way that these things stay popular is because people buy them, people go in for them. And that's mainstream. So when we're talking about indies, am I able to put out a book a year regardless of anything that happens? Yes, because my life is set up a certain way that I'll be able to produce a book per year, but that means that comes 100% out of my pocket. And like when I say out of my pocket, I mean in terms of like debt. Like it's not just the production part, but I have to front
Yeah,
everything to
yeah,
be able to bring it to people. Which again is it can be difficult for some, and not everybody's in the same position I am. So when you support us and you support the book, you're actually just paying the normal cost that you would pay for the book itself, for what we're doing, for getting it shipped to you. Just so that we can bring you the content, man. We're out here telling stories, and people are always, especially in my community, are always, oh man, we wish we had original Black heroes, and we want this and static, and blah 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 blah. But there are a ton of us out here really creating really good stories, good heads on our shoulders, trying to really move this new storytelling art form and this mythology forward. Just in general, obviously, Wingless Comics. When I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about building a universe with my friends Brett and Malachi and Jay and Lawrence, right? We're talking about that. We're talking about building this infrastructure. And again, it's important that we have people that support us, obviously financially, right? But also like emotionally. Like this shit ain't easy. You got to
right.
pour your heart onto the page. And so it's great when people let us know, hey man, I bought your book. Hey, I backed it. Oh, I love this story. This part was dope. Hey, I love Caliburn. I love this or I love that. All that kind of shit is important to the creative process. And it's something that I'm never going to stop, and something I don't want to stop. Something I want to keep bringing to people. And again, the more you support, the easier it is to bring it to you.
I got nothing to say. That's you. You're a very eloquent person, man. Like you this is why you write good shit. Like
I appreciate you.
that's why you write good shit. Like I got nothing else to say to that. That was well said. Like, but yeah, no, 100%. I think people need to check out the campaign, keep backing, keep sharing. I mean, like we got to reach a point of brand awareness. All of us, but like right, I'm talking to you right now, but Wingless Entertainment, we got to get that on people's minds. We got to get that in people's mouths so that people will be talking about it when it's time to talk about, oh, what do you have? What do you recommend?
Yeah.
We want them to recommend Justice. We want them to recommend Nightfall. We want to recommend her. Like these stories that are out here that people aren't just saying, oh, we want when's the Static movie coming? Well,
Yeah.
cool. Like
Yeah.
that'll be 5-10 years from now, whenever they decide to make it. But now you could be reading this.
Right. 100%. And it's just like, look, it's just like when Milestone first started, right? And people were like, oh, it would be cool if we had a blah, blah, blah. And then they did, you know what I mean? And it
Right.
took a little while, and a cartoon and this and that. And everything starts with a little bit of a groundswell. So again, we're in a great position. I love where we are. I love being able to come on shows like this and be able to talk and talk about a myriad of things, right? And to show that, again, this pop culture phenomena is not limited to a certain type of person that looks a certain type of way or watches a certain type of thing, or is only D&D or is only anime or is only, you know what I mean? Like it's this big, amalgamation of all these things. And as someone who grew up on all of that, who I grew up without borders, I grew up without having to call myself a Black Jedi. I could just be a Jedi or all these other things. I think it's important that we instill that kind of imagination in the next generation. Again, across the spectrum. One of the cutest things I had in the world, man, at the last show I was at Black Comics Day in February, a little girl came up to the table with her father and they were looking through the books, and she grabbed, I think it was like Justice issue 3, right? Even though 1 and 2 were there, she just grabbed something about the cover for issue 3, struck her eye. She grabbed it and she was flipping through it. And you could see like the gleam in her eye as she looked through the book. I was like, man, you want the book? And she was like, she didn't say anything. She just like shook her head up and down. Yes. I just told her pa. I leaned over to her pop. So I was like, man, she can have it, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying. He was like, well, nah, bro, I'm not trying to have a sale. I don't need the money.
Right.
Like, what I need is for her to see whatever she saw in that book. What I need is for her to feel like that. And I need her to tell her friends, right? What I need is for that to happen to kids across the world. It's not about the, excuse me, it's not about the quick dollars, right? And it's easy to talk these platitudes and say these things. I'm actually living them, right? Like I don't care if I go somewhere and 5 kids are literally, not just because they want something, right? But they literally look at the book and you can see in their eyes that they see something and it catches them and it sparks them. Bro, take that. Because regardless, it's going to be just like me with that Spawn issue 10 that I had and that fucking Wizard magazine that I had, right? I don't know if that's the only comic they're ever going to get or they're going to get until they're adults, but that should change my life, right? And so the potential to change somebody else's life based on what I do in a comic format, in a storytelling format, one, I'm never going to give that shit up, first of all.
Right.
But the more support I have to do that, the more chances I get to talk about that, the more chances I get to affect that, the better it becomes and the stronger it becomes and the more powerful this entire movement of people at a ground level affecting other people becomes. And that's really where it's at, right? Because then that pays for itself. That makes its own money. You don't have to worry about the marketing and the money because you had the effect on the people, right? Yeah. And you started, again, you started this kind of groundswell and everything else takes care of it fucking self, right? And that's where Wingless Comics is. That's where I want to continue to be, and that's where I want to push forward.
Let's keep it fucking pushing. Let's go to this fucking campaign and get it over 10, get it over 15. Let's get it over fucking 20. We got over 30 days left. I cannot wait to see where it ends up and where the story goes forward. I'm waiting for the trade.
I know
Nightfall is the next. I got to pick the trade up. I've got a bunch of the digitals, but I have so many damn digitals. I 100% am letting the dice control my reading because the choice paralysis is insane for me.
I understand. Trust me, I'm the same way with digitals, especially between Kickstarter and everything else, because I'll get whatever tier is both physical and digital. So I end up having 2 copies of everything. I don't know where shit is, and on and on and on. Also, hit me up either during or after the campaign, because so in addition, this is issue 4, but it's also the trade. So you can get the trade for volume 1, which is 1 through 4.
Sick.
And you can also get Nightfall. So hit me up either during or after the trade, campaign, and we'll work something out so we get the trades too, bro.
Fantastic, man. I'd love to hear it. All right, that's going to be it for this one. I've taken a lot of your time up this evening, so thank you for hanging out, man. Appreciate the conversation. It's always a great time. winglessentertainment.com. Tell me I got that right off.
Wingless ENT. So close. Super close.
So close.
Right. winglessent.com. We're also Wingless Comics on all socials, and Wingless Entertainment on Twitter. So we are out there. You can find us anywhere.
Outstanding. And of course, I am the Indie Hype Man at Indie Hype Man on Twitter and on TikTok now. I changed my tag. I figured I'd go universal. So Twitter and TikTok and YouTube even. It's all Indie Hype Man. And we're doing this to promote the indie space, to promote indie comics and indie creators like our friend Brian J Lambert, who it's been a fucking pleasure, man. It's been a genuine fucking pleasure.
All the time, man. Honestly, all the time, man. All the time. I appreciate it. Also, I'm gonna follow your YouTube, man. I'm not on your YouTube, but I'm gonna go right now after we get off.
Appreciate it. That's me for this one. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Before they go living, my vision is vivid. I wander the places they marvel. The shit that I'm talking is low-key a novel. Yeah, I'm so lit, but a lonely spark. About to end game like Tony Stark.